Welcome to Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. I'm Rob Wilson.
And I am Tony the Quano.
So, Tony, let's continue our Nicolas Cage miniseries inside of our summer blockbuster series with one of not only his craziest roles, but John Travolta's craziest roles too.
Yes.
And let's talk about some Face Off.
Everyone's getting crazy.
Everyone's getting crazy in this movie. So yeah, let's talk about Face Off. So yeah, this movie, like last time with Con Air, we got sort of an introduction to Crazy Cage, right? We had a few different stages of Cage.
Yes.
But nothing got too wild.
He had to be restrained a bit for Con Air, though. He couldn't quite go all that way.
Exactly.
Not too wild.
Yeah.
At least not from Cage.
I mean, his hair was pretty wild. But yeah, yes. the wild came from John Malkovich mostly in that movie.
And just Simon West's direction.
Yeah. But this movie, someone let Nicolas out of the cage. Just let him roam
I like
free. So, yeah. So everybody talks about this movie being, how Nicolas Cage had to play John Travolta and John Travolta had to play Nicolas Cage. That's not 100% accurate.
I agree with this.
More accurate.
I agree with this. I want to see what you have to say, and then I'll chime in.
Okay. So what's a little bit more accurate is not only do you see Cage playing Travolta and Travolta playing Cage, but you see Cage playing Travolta playing Cage.
Yes.
And you get Travolta playing Cage playing Travolta.
Correct.
So you put those things together.
They do this
and it's
brilliantly,
ridiculously crazy.
By themselves in their original characters, as they are, right? The Cage's character, right, is much crazier himself than a John Travolta character.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So it just allows to have Cage playing Travolta as Cage. This allows him just to amp it up to 1,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the result's glorious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the Travolta part is, he's going to play Cage, but it's almost in a way of Cage mocking Travolta.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he's, I don't know, it's just, yeah, Cage, it's like he's, because up to this point, prior to last year, the previous years of The Rock, right? He was in some comedies and some dramas, and I don't think anyone would have put him kind of in the where you kind of believe this kid is that. And then starting with The Rock, it kind of started building. It feels like, I think Nicolas Cage has even kind of said this before, that it was the first time he was kind of, as he coined it, let out of the cage. Yeah, and it's terrific.
It really is.
What's not to love about it?
Yeah, and this movie's just so fun to watch. It's such a fun, ridiculous
fun
watch. Because just like a few other movies we talked about on this podcast, and I'm sure more that we will talk about, they knew it was a ridiculous premise, so they just had fun with it.
Yes.
They didn't try to make it super serious. They didn't try to make it just a all out, balls to the wall comedy. They just had fun with it.
And John Woo is was a great choice for the director on this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's this is what I think this is his third American film, right?
Okay.
Because he had Broken Arrow before this.
Uh-huh.
And
another Travolta movie.
And then what was the one? And Christian Slater.
Yes. Christian Slater was in that
too. And then what was the Van Damme movie he had? There was a Van Damme movie he had earlier.
Yeah, was that which one was that?
Hard Target?
Yeah, maybe.
But previously, he was well known for all of his, Hong Kong movies, especially with Chow Yun-fat, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is the first one where the studio really gave him full control over the movie.
Yeah. And a year after this, he would do Mission Impossible 2.
Hard Target, correct.
Yeah, it was Hard Target. Okay.
One.
It was a year after this for Mission Impossible 2, right?
Mission Impossible 2 would have been, I thought that was 2000.
Was it 2000? I thought it was 98 or 99.
The first Mission Impossible,
first Mission
was
Impossible
96. Let's see, MI2.
Yeah, the first one was 96.
2000.
2000, okay.
May 24th, 2000.
All right. So, yeah, a few years after this, he would do Mission Impossible 2.
But this is the, this is still, I think, this is easily his best Hollywood movie. And I was reading up on it. So apparently, and we can get into this, but, there's the original screenplay for this was much more sci-fi oriented than what it was.
Okay.
And then at some point along, before John Woo became attached to it, the studio was like, no, it's just too convoluted. Like, we need to kind of pare this screenplay down a little bit. And so they cut out a lot more of the sci-fi elements.
Okay.
And there are some sci-fi aspects to this.
Yes, definitely.
But in a very general way. And again, it doesn't get bogged down in all the details about it.
But, so, all the sci-fi elements they cut out of it, they made up for that time with the slow-mo.
Yes.
With John Woo's signature slow-mo. If it weren't for that slow-motion camera work, this movie would have been half as long.
It would have been an hour and 5 minutes.
No, I mean, there's nothing wrong with a little slow-mo every once in a while. John Woo does it well. But there's some sequences that really don't have to be in slow motion.
Yes. I would agree with that. But this is also kind of at still that peak of the Travolta revival.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Start with Pulp Fiction. He had Broken Arrow. What, Phenomenon?
Mm-hmm. Phenomenon was in there, yep. Michael
was in there. And he had, and this is Get Shorty, right?
Uh-huh.
And then we had here in Face Off, kind of bringing it all kind of to a close.
Oh, how could you not mention Battlefield Earth?
Oh, wow. The peak, the new peak had to end at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. So
and yeah, it's still it's different from Con Air, right? And they're both crazy movies, but in vastly different ways.
Yeah, they're both crazy movies, but the craziness in Con Air didn't come from Cage, for the most part.
No, it didn't.
I mean, you did get classic Cage lines like, put the money back in the box.
In the box. But then you also have John Travolta threatening to shoot a stuffed bunny rabbit's head off.
Oh, that wasn't John Travolta.
I'm also glad.
That one was John Malkovich.
Yeah, no, it wasn't John. No, it was John Malkovich. Yeah, it wasn't Cage doing that.
No,
right?
it wasn't John Travolta.
It wasn't Cage doing
I'm saying it was John Travolta. You said it was John Travolta.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so
this movie, you get John Travolta doing all sorts of crazy stuff.
Oh, yes. I mean, he starts straight laced in this movie. I am glad that we're doing these back to back because I was thinking about the Con Air episode, and I realized that there are some crazy aspects that we forgot to even talk about last week. Like when MC Gainey just says, "I don't give a flying fuck."
Yeah. Yep.
And then he laughs at it like he thought up some really hilarious joke, even though it was just sitting right there.
Yeah. Or when Steve Buscemi mentions, when everybody's all singing and dancing on the plane taking off to, Sweet Home Alabama, and he comments that, the definition of irony is a bunch of people singing along and dancing to a band that died in a plane crash. Like on a plane to a band that died in a plane crash.
Or the bomb in Cyrus's cell, right? Again, this whole cacophony.
Yeah, which real quick about that bomb in the cell. I know this is a face-off episode and not the Con Air episode, but how could we not have mentioned the bomb in the cell? Because I
don't know how we forgot about that.
Was Cyrus on Is It Cake?
Yeah, I think so.
Because that fake cinder block was perfectly molded.
Yes.
And he would have had to make that every time that he dug that thing out. I mean, it was too brittle and too crumbly for them for him to just have a solid fake cinder block and just slide it in and out every time.
Yeah, right.
Because they were just peeling at it with their fingernails.
They were. There's so much about that sequence, and then he has the schematics to the plane in there. He didn't really need the schematics for the plane.
We've already established how he got that. Red.
That's right.
Red can get stuff. So if he needed schematics to a specific plane, Red could get it for him.
There is no Red in this movie. There's a prison in this movie, but there's no Red.
There's a prison in this movie.
I don't think there is a Red in this movie.
And since you mentioned the prison in this movie, so the
top secret of a prison to have a Red.
Yeah. So in this movie, the prison, the boots that they're wearing, the magnetic boots, they reused those boots from the Super Mario Brothers movie. They're the same boots. They're the same boots that Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo wore in Super Mario Brothers.
I will never, ever understand the executive. It's like, you know what? I'm going to greenlight the idea that Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo are Italian plumber brothers.
Well, in that movie, John Leguizamo was sort of adopted.
Okay. I've never actually seen the movie.
I mean, they're they're not biological brothers. Bob Hoskins, Mario sort of adopted Luigi, but rather than treating him like a son, treats him like a brother.
Okay. That's lame.
I don't know if it was actually a legal adoption or if he just came to live with him and
Hey,
you're my brother now.
Anyway, back to Face Off. And I kind of forgot, this has a pretty solid cast.
It does. It really does.
It's got Thomas Jane in it. I didn't realize it had Thomas Jane in it. It's got Margaret Chow. It's got as an FBI agent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember CCH Pounder's in this movie.
Yes,
I did remember that.
Movie. Yeah, Gina Gershon.
Yes.
Tommy Flanagan. Another movie with him.
I was going to say Tommy Flanagan. Does he even have a line in this movie?
I don't think so.
He shows up in 3 scenes, and it's got 2 of my favorite actors from The Wire. And who else I was going to mention that was in this? Oh, yes. Joan Allen's in this as John Travolta's wife, right? Alessandro Nivola. Dominic Swain, Nick Cassavetes is in this.
Yep.
Harv Presnell, who was recently had in Saving Private Ryan. Cole Fiore is in this, right? John Carroll Lynch, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was thinking about Robert Wisdom and what is he here? Chris Bauer, both from The Wire. Two of my favorite characters from The Wire, by the way. But no, there's no one from Doctor Who though. Yeah. So
no, but Robert Wisdom was also in a very memorable episode of How I Met Your Mother.
Yes,
he was in Murtaugh in that episode.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, this is yeah, again, it's very different than Con Air, and it's almost a higher concept than Con Air, also, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're just gonna take their face
off. So yeah, but that whole concept is still kind of crazy because yeah, they mention that. I mean, we'll get into it when we get to it in the movie, but they mention that they'll change the hairline and they'll do some liposuction, at least for Travolta. And
which he takes back the love handles at the end of the movie.
Yeah. So I mean, how do they do that? They just add more fat back into them. But also Travolta and Cage have completely different body styles. Like they have different body types. Well, that's the thing.
It's not just the
just the face transplant.
And just coloring hair and doing some trimming like that.
Travolta's head is bigger than Cage's head.
They somehow completely change their body types and bone structures.
Yeah. And supposedly it's all completely reversible.
Yes.
Because all they're doing is cutting, is changing their faces and giving them a haircut. And it's supposed to be, they're supposed to look exactly like the other. And when they just sort of, use a laser to cut around the face and then just suck it off of there with a little vacuum. Don't they need to disconnect muscles and all that from the backside of the face at all?
I think this is why you can tell they dialed back some of the sci-fi elements to keep it as clean as possible.
Because I'm pretty sure that your face is actually connected to everything behind it.
Yes. Well, I mean,
and that your skin isn't just laying over your muscles and all that.
The recovery period for these surgeries is remarkable.
Yes. Yes, it is. No scarring. They rip their faces off and there's no scar.
That's some serious plastic surgeon work if you can make sure there's no scarring.
In fact, they can remove a previous scar.
Yes. And then potentially put it back.
Yes.
Yes. But then they don't have to because he doesn't need it anymore.
Yes, he doesn't need it anymore.
He's got a replacement child.
Yes, he does, but we'll get into that.
Not to spoil the movie or anything.
We'll get into the fact
that... Upgraded you, son. Sorry.
We'll get into the fact that John Travolta flat out stole a child in this movie.
We should probably just get into it. Oh, before we get into it, I was trying to remember when I first saw this.
Mm-hmm.
I remember someone in high school when I was in high school talking about it. I think it was at some point in high school. I put it in and watched it because it was such a high concept, right? But they totally face off, and it's Nicolas Cage and John Travolta switching faces.
Mm-hmm.
And I've watched it a few times over the years, and so it's been a long time since I've watched it. You know, I remember certain aspects of it, but not most of it. So, you know, it's different. Again, we talked about, uh, you know, it's different than, you know, it's John Woo's style is different than kind of what you saw for a lot of like 90s action movies, right?
Yeah.
It's not one of those die-hard clones necessarily. And it doesn't have that Michael Bay, Jerry Bruckheimer, Tony Scott style either.
No.
It's its own thing. Like you said, lots of slow motion, very choreographed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a dance.
It is.
Just like John Woo likes to make his movies like.
So,
you know. So yeah, the first time I saw this one was really only a few years ago. It was let's see, was it? Yeah, I think it was more than just a few years ago now. Probably like 15 or so years ago now, I think. Back when I was going through my, Netflix and movies that I had never seen. This was one of those.
And Face Off came up because, like, it's Nicolas Cage. Come on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's one of the most famous Nicolas Cage movies.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, I remember when this was in the theater. I remember looking at the in the paper, and back when they had the movie listings in the newspaper. You couldn't go online and see what's playing and buy your tickets.
Can it just,
Yeah. I remember opening up the paper and seeing
and sometimes, if you had the paper,
the art for this
you would dial a number and get movie showtimes.
Yes. Welcome to Movie Phone.
Well, the thing I appreciate about the poster for this movie, though, is because they keep the the half of the faces in the shadows, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it has the correct names over the heads.
Yes.
I was looking at the Con Air poster.
Yes, that does not have the correct names over any of them.
And that always bugs me.
There's 3 of them on that poster, and the correct name is not over any of them. It's got John Malkovich on the left, Nick Cage in the middle, and John Cusack on the right. And it's got Nicolas Cage as the first name. Then it's got John Cusack as the middle name. And then John Malkovich as the third name.
And then there's even Bing Graves is on the poster. With his arms outstretched. Yep. And he's got the back of his head. Daring that plane. I'm surprised how we did not talk about the poster last week either.
I know. Me too.
And now, before we get into Face Off.
Yep. But hey, it's fine because this is a miniseries in itself, so we can jump back and forth.
That's right. Exactly. It makes sense. Con Air has explosions with planes. Guess what? Face Off has explosions with boats.
Yes, it does. So the poster for Face Off. Yeah, I remember seeing that in the paper and seeing it hanging out.
It's a striking poster. It's actually a very it's a clean poster, and it communicates the movie really, really well. It's actually a really good movie poster.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's got half of Travolta's face and half of Cage's face, and it has the right names above them.
Travolta's on the left and Cage is on the right.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're looking at it, Travolta's on the left.
Which I think makes sense because Travolta is the one that has to essentially become Cage first.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you were gonna name a lead in this movie, I think it would have to be Travolta.
Yes. And again, even though most of the movie protagonist of the movie.
Even though most of the movie Travolta is being played by Cage, Travolta would still be the lead. Because it's
it does make it feel really weird at the end.
Yeah. Really weird. But yeah.
Because the thing is, John Travolta can play a very good villain.
Yes, he can.
Because, like I said, he was the villain in Broken Arrow, which we talked about, and then he mostly plays the villain in this. So, yeah.
And I guess he's technically a villain in Pulp Fiction.
Technically, yes. He, he's very, he was very, careless with his trigger finger. Poor Morphin.
Yeah, we'll get into that when we do Pulp Fiction. We don't want to spoil too much of that movie right now.
The villain, the Punisher, the Thomas Jane Punisher.
Yes, he was.
So, nope. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm ready to get into this.
I am too. So, as always, spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about this entire movie, beginning, middle, and end. So if you have not seen it, you don't want to be spoiled, pause the podcast, watch the movie, and come back and listen. If you have seen the movie or you just don't mind being spoiled, then keep on listening. But, I mean, we've already spoiled a few aspects of this movie, but, I mean, that was kind of to be expected because this movie is full of spoilers right off the bat. So, yeah, we're going to spoil the rest of this movie. So deal with it.
We're going to spoil all of it. Sorry.
All of it. All of it. All of the face waterfalls. So
don't go chasing waterfalls.
So yeah, so that's a term that I got from the How Did This Get Made podcast when they were talking about this movie, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, let's make sure to tag them when this comes out.
So, but yeah, I mean, there's really, they mentioned it, and there's really no other way to explain that motion where they take their hand and sort of run their fingers down somebody's face, kind of like a waterfall.
So weird.
So it's like a face waterfall.
That is
so. I mean, yeah, giving credit where credit's due. That term came from the How Did This Get Made podcast.
It's a terrific quirk for a character because, like, it is like, who else would actually do that or know to do that or think to do that? And it actually is kind of creepy.
Yeah, it's very creepy. And apparently, it was Travolta's idea.
Well, anyway, we'll get into that. Because it happens multiple times.
Oh, it happens 8.5 times throughout this movie. I counted. Give or take 1 or 2 face waterfalls. But yeah, it happens 8.5 times.
That's a decent margin of error. Oh,
there's only half.
Go back and watch it.
There's only half because after he turns into Travolta, then he tries it. He starts to do it and then stops.
Yes. That's right. I mean, he almost says it to himself.
When he turns into Cage.
Kind of.
Let's say when he turns into Travolta. When Travolta turns into Cage, he does it. He starts to.
I remember that part. Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's a tell.
Yeah.
Should have done it to, Cage's brother.
Yeah.
But anyway. Enough of that, because we'll get into face waterfalls.
Yeah.
Yes. You had me thinking about TLC. And
yes. So, thank you, Paul Scheer, for that term.
All right. So the movie, it starts. It's black and white. It's a black and white movie. No, it's not a black and white movie.
No.
It's obviously a flashback.
No, it starts out, within 5 minutes of this movie, a child gets shot in the head by a sniper.
In slow motion.
So yeah, this movie has those kind of balls.
Yes. No, and this child gets shot, because actually the bullet goes through his body, and then into his head.
So yeah, so we get a sniper setting up his rifle, right? And
he's got a big gulp.
He's got a big gulp, and it's quickly revealed that it is Nicolas Cage, and we see John Travolta. We don't know their names yet. We don't know that Travolta is Sean Archer and Nicolas Cage is Castor Troy. We don't know that yet. But So we get Travolta with what looks to be his son, and they're at a carousel. And, they're just having fun, having a fun father-son day.
The daughter's there too. I think we see her.
Was she there?
I want to say she was. Maybe it was another girl. I don't know. For some reason, I thought
it was just the two of them.
A girl. It might just be the two of them.
I mean, there could have been other families and stuff there too, and
probably
like
5, there, 6 years old.
Yeah,
he's kind of like kindergarten age, right?
Little kid. And
so he's all
during this slow motion
courses, and Dad's standing next to him, making sure he doesn't fall off.
Yeah, but and they're like laughing, and this whole sequence is sort of a mix between regular speed and slow motion. And, we get a slow motion face waterfall. The first of the movie.
That one. We had video right now. We'd point up, and there'll be a 1 just going off. It'd just be TLC just
dancing. Yes. So anyway, so we see, and it keeps cutting back and forth between Travolta and Cage. And Cage is looking through the scope on the rifle, and we see the crosshairs, go onto Travolta, onto his back, and Cage pulls the trigger and fires the gun. And Travolta gets hit. But then we see blood on the horse that his son was riding on.
Yeah, that's right. And, there's no one on the horse. There's no one sitting next to the horse.
Mm-hmm. And it turns out that...
And you can see he's...
Yeah. So, then he grabs his son, who's not moving, and runs over and lays him on the ground. Yeah, and it shows a brief glimpse of a bullet hole in his head. Did you catch that?
Yes. There's blood all over his head in this little hole.
Yeah. So, yeah, Cage is trying to shoot Travolta through the heart from behind, from the back. And so,
but he's on a carousel.
His son, he's moving. On a carousel, he's moving, and his son's head was like right at that level of his chest. Yeah, so it went through Travolta and
through his back, through his chest, and into his son's head.
Mm-hmm.
And it's awful because there's other scenes in this movie that we'll get to that reminded me of Hot Fuzz.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think about this, and you think about, is it true?
There's a place in a man's head that if you shoot it, it will blow up.
This kid's head did not blow up.
No, it did not. It did not. So,
but yeah,
it takes a lot of balls for a movie to just flat out murder a child in the first 5 minutes.
It does. Now, and granted, there are certain revenge type movies where that kind of happens.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily always in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, this is before any lines are spoken.
Yeah.
It's just this pretty much silence. I mean, there's music playing, but it's more or less a silent sequence. There's music playing, and you hear the gunshot, but...
It is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's your cold open.
Yeah. So then does it go to the funeral, or does it just automatically jump to a year later?
It just jumps to it's not just a year later, it's multiple years later, I thought they said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so, yeah. Maybe it was like
jumps in.
Yeah, it was a few years later. Yeah, that's right. Because then later, Joan Allen gets mad because they always go to the cemetery on his birthday.
Yes.
So it would be more than just 1 year.
Yeah. Okay. 6 years later.
Okay. So it jumps to 6 years later. So
And now it's still kind of jumping back and forth. Like we get, it's a that is slightly older John Travolta, right?
mm-hmm.
A very morose John Travolta, right? And he's got this vendetta against this man that killed his son,
Castor Troy,
right? And John Travolta plays Sean Archer, and as you said, Nicolas Cage plays Castor Troy.
And Sean Archer's son's name is Michael Archer.
And I'm going to grab his name real quick, but as I'm doing that, so
we
start. We're in.
Talking about
what was that?
Who plays Michael? That's Miles Jeffrey.
Yes, Miles Jeffrey. Okay. So yeah, we're in, the Los Angeles field office for the FBI, which is where Sean Archer works.
Yes,
right.
He's an FBI agent,
and he's, again, you could see he's like grizzled, and he's basically spent these last 6 years making his mission to find Castor Troy and bring him to justice. Right?
Yeah.
And he's part of a really kind of like a covert ops operation with the FBI, right?
Yeah.
And basically, as we discovered, Castor Troy is essentially a freelance terrorist, right?
Yep.
So never really told exactly why he targets Sean in the first place. Was it because
we're not
himself wanting to, it's not really that important why. It happened, and that it drives what happens now.
I always got the impression that it was because Sean was the one who was primarily coming after him. That
right.
It was his team that was trying to take down Castor Troy.
That's the way I kind of took it. I guess the other potential possibility is that maybe Sean arrested some other dude, and then that person's like, a brother or wife or someone or uncle, right?
Yeah,
hired him to kill him.
That could be too.
But yeah, I kind of lean towards what we were saying there, that just he's been,
that they have a history
pursuing him. They have a history. And they don't really get that. They don't get into that part of the history before this.
Frankly, that history is not really important to the story.
Exactly, it's not important. So, but now it's really personal for Sean, regardless.
Yeah.
Right. So, and we see, we're gonna get to know some of his team, right? And we mentioned earlier. Well, CCH Crowd is not part of his team.
No, she's one of his superiors.
Later, he will be. We see Tito, played by Robert Wisdom. Margaret Cho's part of his team. She plays Wanda. There's a few other guys or whatever, and he's just kind of angry because they can't keep getting a beat on where that Castor Troy is, right? So meanwhile, we do get to see Castor Troy. We get to see Nicolas Cage again, and he's dressed as a priest.
Yeah, and
he's at the LA Convention Center, and you can see him planting this bomb, and he's wearing a full.
He's wearing a full-on
priest cassock getup.
Yeah,
and it was just funny because you look at him wearing this, and you don't take it seriously at all.
No,
you don't buy it.
No, especially
we know that
once he meets the choir girl.
Well, right. So that's the interesting thing. So, we see the thing, right? They're saying it's the convention of choirs or something, and there's this one choir, in this great big open atria of the convention center, singing Handel's Messiah, the Hallelujah chorus. And in the middle of them singing, he goes up to one of them.
Yes, there's this young girl in the front row that we don't know how old she is, but. She's clearly a teenager.
Yeah, I'm going to say probably no more than, 18 to 19. If she's not in high school, she's probably a freshman in college.
If that old.
Right?
I mean, Castor Troy is he's a crazy motherfucker. I wouldn't put it past him to also be a pederast.
We'll get to that later. He does look at some other young bottoms.
But yeah, so
anyway,
he walks up behind this girl while she's singing.
and he just says, like, I've always hated this. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he's singing. Yeah, sometimes he just sings, Hallelujah.
Yep.
He's going crazy Cage.
He's crazy Cage.
But like I said, he walks up behind her.
And then he just grabs her ass. And then
he gives out a
and then the only way to really describe it is you see Nicolas Cage's O face.
Yeah. Which brings so many other questions up. But the scene cuts.
Yeah.
Like, did he accidentally
I don't even want to go into that.
I don't know. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
It's such an it's so exaggerated too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, so but yeah, we could tell that he planted, he set a bomb, right? And then he left. Okay. And then, it cuts back to the field office, and one of the agents comes in and says that Castor's brother just chartered a plane at LAX. Pollux Troy, right? Played by Alessandro Nivola. And now Travolta wants to step into action. Like, we got to get someone on that plane. And we got to get a team to, get as many as we can. We get LAPD on this, right? Any available agent to get to this private airstrip at LAX. Because the two of them if Pollux is flying somewhere, then Castor is flying with them.
Yes.
Like, they're not going to be separated.
No.
Right? And so then it cuts that little airfield, right? And
there's this woman that walks up to Castor.
Well, first she's on the plane and she says, I have to go. And, she doesn't walk up to him yet because he drives up, right? And he's in this nice car, and he comes out, and he's got a wine color, like, suit on. Right? And he tells people, like, you may not want to be around here, and on the 16th, it's going to get a little smoky. Right?
There's so many great one-liners in this movie. So many great lines.
And then he puts on his jacket, and he's got these gold-plated 1911s.
Yes, he's got these two gold-plated 1911s.
And he walks up, and one of them is, a friend, like we said earlier, sorry, Tommy Flanagan. Another guy, right? They seem to be kind of like his two kind of like right hand man, or whatever you want to call them, right? And Pollux is there, right? They open up this little case, and I love it. There's chiclets.
Yes, chiclets, a box of chiclets, and that's where we see the two gold-plated 1911s.
That's right. They're in that. That's right. So
yeah, they're in the box.
He drinks big gulps, and he chews on chiclets.
Yeah, he picks up the box of chiclets, gives it a little shake, and then puts it in his pocket.
And then he's got a billfold. It's a dragon head. It's a gold dragon head. Right? Anyway. So they're about to get the plane. That's when he said there's that woman that walks down, right? And we saw it earlier. And they get on the plane together, and he invites her to sit on his lap.
He invites her to sit on his lap, and she's acting kind of suspicious a little bit, but
yes,
she
is.
Then he delivers a line that is so strange. He asks this woman, if I were to let you suck my tongue, would you be grateful? And without saying anything, he sticks his tongue out, and she wraps her lips around his tongue and starts sucking on his tongue.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what happens.
Oh.
Is that when he first has the peach line too? He's got the peach line in there too.
Yes, he does have the peach line. Oh, what is the peach line? I forget what that one is. I wrote down the tongue sucking one word for word because I didn't want to get that one wrong. But I forget what the peach line was.
Oh, I could eat a peach for hours.
Yes. I could eat a peach for hours. That's what it was.
Because that's going to come back later, because that's going to be the voice match they use.
Yep. Yep.
And I love it. He's doing this with his brother sitting across the aisle from him.
Yes. Those two must have had a really screwed up childhood.
Yeah, I think. So they're about to prepare for takeoff. And then that's when quote unquote cavalry comes, right? There's SUVs and cop cars, right? There's helicopters, right? So, and they have not taken off yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this plane takes forever to take off, by the way.
Yeah.
This is small.
It's a small private jet. Yeah.
A little leer. And he threatens the pilot, right? And then he gets back out before, and then he goes back to the main section of the plane, and then we discover that she's an FBI agent.
Yep. We discover that she's an FBI agent who just sucked his tongue. Hey,
you got to do some things sometimes.
Yeah, when you're undercover agent. Yeah, when you're undercover, you got to suck some tongues, apparently.
Compromise some morals sometimes, supposedly.
Yeah.
So, anyway. He eventually is able to get the upper hand on her, right? And so he opens up the plane door, right? And I guess at this point, the plane has not started a taxi. Right? So because he sees Sean when he opens up the door of the plane, and he has her hostage there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he just shoots her, right?
Yeah.
No, the plane is taxiing. That's right, because she stumbles and kind of falls under the plane.
Yeah.
As this is happening, I forgot about that, right? And it's one of my it's classic Nicolas Cage. He just looks at John Travolta, Sean. He's like, oops.
Yeah.
And then it continues to take off, right? And he threatens the pilot. So Sean Archer, right? He decides he's going to get into the helicopter, and they're going to try to land in front of the plane, kind of playing chicken.
Well, they're going to try to land on the plane.
Well, right.
So, so the plane is going down the runway, and they've got the helicopter, and they're like trying to land on the wing and all this stuff, trying to get in front of it.
And and then the pilot's saying, "I can't take off." Like he's ripped off one of the they've ripped off one of the engines, right? So he kills the pilot anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they can't get off, and so then they kind of crash towards like this hangar, right? So they're all getting ready to start shooting at Archer, at Troy Castor, and then we get. Have you ever fired two guns while it's jumping in the air? Nicolas Cage is. It's a classic. I mean, this is a classic John Woo shot.
Classic.
Someone John jumping Woo through the air, firing two guns.
Mm-hmm.
Very classic John Woo.
Yeah.
Right? And it's his two 1911s. Mm-hmm. So it's great. He jumps out of this plane. He's wearing this wind colored suit.
Yeah, he just dives out of this
gold plated 1911s. It's a really cool look.
It is. It's wildly impractical what he's doing, but it's really cool looking.
But it looks cool and it sounds cool. So, there's this whole show that's going out, around the hangar and inside the hangar, and some of the FBI guys get shot and killed, and right, they're eventually able to capture Pollux, right? And so now it's just kind of just Castor and Sean, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's great about this movie, I was thinking about this, not necessarily when I was watching it, but afterwards thinking about it, is that the two of them actually face off several times in this movie.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
So a lot of times in like action movies, like I know we mentioned like Fifth Element's a classic movie where the villain and the protagonist never actually meet each other or even speak to each other, right? That's very uncommon.
Yeah.
Right? But this one's kind of almost opposite. Like they actually see each other a lot in this movie.
Yes, they do.
For most action movies, like they might meet once and then again, like at the climax.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. This one, like they see each other a lot.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they come around. I mean, you could say that they see each other every time they look in the mirror, but
they do. Right? You get the classic shot, like they're pointing guns at each other, and they both have one bullet left, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I forget who. I think it's Castor that mentions like, "Oh, we both know our own gun. Both know our guns."
Yeah, it is. Right? Castor's like, "Oh, we both know each other's guns."
Yeah. So, but is Castor actually out of bullets though?
I think they're both out of bullets, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, I think they're both out.
So one thing's,
and that's when he says, "Oh, look, we both."
I love how it's just like I love how it's just like a wind tunnel and an engine in this hangar. Yeah. I don't know why it's there.
I don't know, but it makes for a cool sequence.
It does.
But yeah, there's just an engine just suspended, like a jet engine just suspended from the ceiling in the middle of this room. And there's, a hallway behind it, like a wind tunnel kind of thing. And yeah, Castor standing behind the jet engine. And Sean activates it. And it just launches Castor back against the back wall, like down this wind tunnel against the back wall, and knocks him out.
I love how you see him flying back, and the camera kind of goes with him.
Yeah,
it's a nice shot, but obviously it knocks him out.
It doesn't just knock him out; it puts him into a coma.
Anyway, we'll get into that coma later.
Yeah.
So, and job well done, right? So now we go back home. We're in a typical suburban neighborhood.
Well, don't we get back to the office first? Because aren't they celebrating?
I thought the celebration comes after this. No, you know what? They do go back to the office first. That's right.
Because they're celebrating because they finally caught Castor.
Right. But he can't have it. He wants to toast
his fallen comrades. His fallen brethren.
And so he has to depress everybody at the office.
Yeah. So he starts naming every one of their names, which, I mean, kudos to him for
kudos.
Naming every one of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it kind of brings it brings the feeling down, brings down the joyous occasion.
Which I mean, I get that they want to applaud that, but at the same time, any situation like that, it's it's tough. You could have found a better balance. Could have been Rohan.
Yeah.
After Helm's Deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. You get a bunch of tankards, fill them with ale, and then you raise them.
Yep.
Hail the victorious dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
He could have just done that because it was
That way,
a bottle.
that way you're still honoring the dead. You're honoring the fallen, but you're keeping the mood up. You're not just depressing everybody.
And then if you're an elf, you just don't get drunk because you're an elf.
Yeah.
And you outdrink a dwarf.
Until that elf is given rum,
anyway,
and then
that'll be a Lord of the
pirate.
Rings series.
But
that's our Pirates of the Caribbean series.
Yes. So
anyhow, so now we get back home. We get back to the suburbs.
Yeah.
And he gets home, and his wife, played by Joan Allen, is having a fight with the daughter.
Eve Archer
I should say
his
a
wife.
Fight, but
so Eve and Jamie.
Eve
is the wife, Jamie's the daughter.
Yes.
Eve is played by Joan Allen, like you said, and Jamie is played by Dominique Swain.
And so she's just got detention or a suspension because of starting some fight at school because some kid made fun of the way she looks. She's in high school, and I think it's funny.
She's got piercings, and she's
it's trying to make it look like a very mid to late 90s angsty teenager.
Yeah. She's definitely supposed to portray the rebellious teen.
Yes. And dad gets home, and he just sees her the back of her, and he just hears this thing like, oh no, she started this fight, and then he's still kind of from the day, just being kind of shocked by all of it, and just kind of all the energy sapped out of him, right? And he sees her as she turns around, and he's like, oh. And daughter, she just storms off to her room, right? And and his wife's like, oh, I don't know what we're gonna do, that type of thing. But he's like, then all he does is we got him, right?
And Eve knows exactly what he means.
They embrace. So, it's nice, the kind of initial setup to the family, and obviously, of course, there has to be the angsty daughter.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a '90s movie with a teenage daughter if she wasn't angsty.
Relationship with her, right? It can't be the happy home.
No.
Yes. Yeah. No. So, yeah, and then we get back to the office again, and they're so what we kind of failed to mention, I guess, when they're facing off back in the hangar, is that Troy, Castor was kind of teasing Sean about oh, your daughter must be pretty ripe now, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's I bet your wife can't stand you either. And then he kind of teases that there's a bomb somewhere in Los Angeles that is going to set to go off. And he's the only one that knows about it, right? So he's back at the office. They're back at the office, and they're trying to figure it out. And his boss doesn't believe him, right? That's Harv Parnell, which mentioned that he's once again in one of our movies. He plays Victor Lazaro.
Yep.
Right, and he's a lot like his character in Fargo. Very unlikable. Anyway.
Yeah. He always plays kind of an unlikable character.
Yes, he does.
He's a good actor, though.
Good actor. So that's when Tito comes in and says one of the other special ops teams, they found something, that was on, I guess, in the possessions. I guess it was on the plane, right? After the whole incident, they did all the evidence, all that, right? And I love it because it's a diskette. There's a diskette in this movie.
Yep. Yep. I
They
mean,
put it in.
it has to have something that dates this movie. Like every
Yes.
90s action movie needs something that dates it.
Yeah. And if it has, especially if it has to do with computers, you know it's going to get dated.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be you've got mail.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so they put the diskette in, and then there's this, computer generated image of this woman, right? And then she turns into a skeleton, right? And it sends this warning about this thing that's going to happen. Right. And so now they really know, like, that's the confirmation. Right. And and it's CCH Pounder is the one that brings in the diskette with Tito. And she is
she's Hollis Miller.
So, but she's like, I think we have a way, it's like, well,
we have a way. It's
Pollux is in prison, but he's not going to talk to anybody.
Yeah,
it's
except
not
Castor,
his brother.
Yeah.
Well, it was like, I think we might have a way for that, right? And so they go off to.
It's wildly experimental.
That's putting it lightly. So they go off to the hills of like Los Angeles, right? A little bit outside the city, and they go to, I guess, this FBI little like research facility, and they meet Dr. Malcolm Walsh, played by Colin Fiore,
and
he explains this procedure that they could do.
Yeah, where they take his face off. Or they basically, cut around the face of him and Castor, and
they
remove their faces and
Castor's
swap them
in a liquid.
Yeah, so they suspend Castor's face in a
liquid.
Yeah,
not going to they swap them.
They don't swap them, but they
will be swapped eventually.
Yes, they will be swapped. But yeah, so they suspend. Yeah, they're going to cut Travolta's face off. They're going to cut Castor's face off. They're going to put Castor's face in a jar, basically suspended in this liquid.
Which, by the way, so we're talking about like how does all this work, right? So like, what are they going to suspend that face in? Because like it's still living tissue.
Yeah.
So that living like if they just like, what are they going to put it in to ensure that that tissue would survive, right? Because they got. I'm assuming Sean would want his face back after after everything's done.
Yeah. So then they're going to put Sean's face on Castor's body, on Castor's head. Oh wait, no, sorry. Yeah, no. Sean's face Sean's face is going to be suspended.
Castor's head.
No, Sean's face is going to be the one in the jar.
Castor's face is going to be on Sean's body.
Wait. It's got to be your bowl. No. That's a different movie. We'll do Tommy Boy sometime. But no. So yeah, Sean's face is going to be taken off and put in a jar. Suspended by some liquid that's supposed to keep
Castor's face will be cut off.
Castor's face will be cut off and then put on Travolta's face, on his head.
Well, his head.
Put on Travolta's head, and then
Travolta's head.
Then they're going to
become Travolta's new face.
Yeah,
and then they're going to mold Travolta's body to be.
Yeah, so they're going to give Travolta a little bit of liposuction. They're going to get rid of his love handles. They're going to give him a haircut.
I know we talked about like the differences of body types, but like it's a good thing this wasn't Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah,
because how would that work?
Yeah, I think that was the plan for Face Off 2.
Anyway, but Sean initially, it's like, I don't think I want to go this route. Let's pressure some of his associates first.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so that's what they do. And the first one is Gina Gershon,
Mm-hmm.
And she's not really up for it. She plays Sasha Hassler.
Yeah, Sasha Hassler, who is the sister, who is basically
of
Castor's
Hassler, played by Nick Cassavetes.
Yes, the sister of one of Castor's henchmen, of his head henchman, and also Castor's lover. Like, Dietrich's not his lover, but Sasha is.
Which, hey, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Castor goes.
I wouldn't be surprised either.
But anyway, so she's kind of interrogated first. She doesn't really say anything, and then they bring in Nick Cassavetes. I love his look. His name's Dietrich. They make him. He's bald, and he kind of looks like he belongs either in Highlander or a Terminator movie. To be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he's not saying anything at first, and then he starts mocking Sean, right? Especially about his dead son.
Mm-hmm.
So that pushes him over the edge, and he kind of slams his head on the table, right? And so then he gives off like, "Oh, I heard something about this date," right? Which at least that's enough for him now. I was like, okay, so we have a confirmation that there is something that's going to happen, and we have a date.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know where, but at least we have a date. So, and that's enough. At that point, he's like, you know what? I'm done talking to people.
It's not a date to the prom in San Dimas.
So, he now agrees that
no matter how triumphant their time
procedure.
Might be.
So,
yeah. So he comes back and he's like, okay, I'll do it.
So he goes home.
And right? and one of the things, he cannot tell his wife about it.
It's totally a black bag operation, right? The only people that are going to know are the doctor.
Yeah, the doctor, Tito, Hollis, and I guess
Sean. Technically, the whole medical team there.
Yeah, the whole. Yeah.
So I want to get to
the doctor and his assistants and nurses and
all the people in that facility, right? Which is strangely not a heavily guarded facility.
Yeah,
we'll get to that. So he gets home, right? So like when he first got home and was talking to his wife about how now that Castor's captured, we'll take a desk job, we'll do anything, and she says, "I just want you."
Mm-hmm.
Right? So he gets home and she's ready to just now this next day she's ready to be it's a regular night, right? And they're getting close, and she's kind of feeling like she wants to be intimate, right? But he's clearly has other things on his mind. He's like, I gotta do one other thing, and it's
and then it's done.
Yep, that's just
you gotta do one more thing, and then it's done.
You don't need my permission.
Anytime
you always do what you want to do,
or
what you think you have to do, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And anytime in a movie somebody says, I just got to do one more thing,
it's never going to be simple.
It's never going to be simple. If it's a cop movie and it's their last day before retirement,
they fucked. Not always.
Not always. But
I mean,
it's going to be a crazy time. It's going to be a crazy last day.
Yeah, like I said, Robert Duvall and Falling Down. He had a hell of a day with Michael Douglas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that'd be a good movie to do one day.
It would be a good movie to do one day. I have not actually seen that movie, and it's been on my list of movies that I need to check out for years. So maybe we should do it on here
probably
so that I have an excuse to watch it.
Anyhow, right. So, she goes to bed, and he leaves, and before he leaves, he goes in to is it Janie or Jamie?
Jamie with an M.
Jamie. That's right, because that comes into play later. Yeah. And she's just she's sleeping. She's falling asleep. It's typical 90s teenage bedroom.
Oh, and there was at least one, maybe two more face waterfalls in all this time too.
Oh yes, no. The TLC, they've started dancing again. Right. So yeah, he goes in the room. He's gonna say good night or goodbye to her, but she's asleep. Like I said, it's a very '90s like bedroom too. Like it's messy, smashing pumpkins. Anyway, so he leaves and he ends up going down back to the facility, and there's Tito there. You have Hollis is there, right? Dr. Malcolm is there, right? And, he's already got kind of his gown on, and he talks to Tito. Is like, what? Take my ring. Make sure I get that back afterwards, right? And then he looks at Dr. Walsh or Dr. Malcolm. And he points, he kind of pulls down his gown a bit, and he shows the scar of the exit wound, right? He's like, when this is done, I need you to put this back, right? This is important. It's like this reminder, right?
Yeah.
And Dr. Malcolm's like, yes, yeah, I can do that, right? And so it's like, all right, let's do this. All right. So he goes to be put under, and it's this large operating room, right? And then you have Tito and Hollis. They're kind of in this observation area watching all of this. And, and we see the procedure. Like there's this little laser, and they just start cutting off both their faces, and like hey, it's take like, off the face.
First they take a marker and they first they take a marker and they draw around the face, and they're cutting apparently the exact same spot on both faces.
Yes.
And so here's what I don't get. So when it comes time, so their plan is, like we said before, they're going to take Travolta's face off, put it in a jar, take Cage's face off, put it on Travolta. So after they get the face on Travolta, then they, take another laser and they seal up the gap there. They seal up where, the two skins meet.
Right.
Which would mean when they take Cage's face off of Travolta, are they following the exact same line? Or is Travolta always going to have some of Cage's face skin on him?
I almost lost a beer. Thank you.
Because if they don't follow that line exactly, then either Travolta's going to have some face skin on him, or Cage's going to have some Travolta skin on him, or both, for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, because like they seal it perfectly because there's no scar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there is no scar. Yeah. Terrific point. So anyway.
Do you think that maybe in that jar it's just water? And they put Travolta's face in there so that he has a constant face waterfall? To remind him of his family while he's in Cage's life?
TLC again. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
Don't go chasing face waterfalls.
Okay. So the procedure continues, right? And then we start seeing them clip some hair, and we see the 90s computers, and they're doing all their little things going on, right? And so it finally ends.
So one of the things that they were explaining earlier when they were talking about this whole procedure was so we have this mask that we put over, and we cut your face.
Yes.
We cut your face off, and this mask is a perfect match to your face. Or one side is a perfect match to your face. The other side is a perfect match to Castor's face. So basically what they're saying was they're going to take his face off, put this little mask thing on that's supposed to make up for the difference in, face shape and size. But here, where they take Castor's face off, they just stick it right on Travolta's head. They don't use any sort of...
Yeah. They don't.
They don't use that barrier mask that they were talking about. They just stick it right on there, use their fingers to sort of massage it around and, line it up with his eyes and nose and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, he's Nicolas Cage.
So they complete the procedure, and again, there's a lot of questions. Like again, you can't get bothered.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, you can't. You can't think too much about this movie because once you start thinking about the logic of this, it all just goes out the window. So you can't really spend too much.
What
time
I do want to know is
movie.
If they're removing a lot of things and then sculpting things like. This had to be a pretty long surgery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the recovery time seems like it's minutes.
That's the thing I'm going to get to. The recovery time seems like it's minutes. Like he doesn't go through like a pack heel where you kind of go through like your initial stage of recovery and then another stage, right? You're not going kind of slowly through things
because he's still on the operating table when he wakes up.
Like, and it seems like they don't take him out that slowly, right?
Yeah.
So first, he's going to be disoriented, and he's going to, for anyone, after you get out of surgery, like at first, like you're groggy, it's weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're uncertain about things, and the first thing is he gets a mirror, and he's still got his brain, and he sees his arch enemy's face.
He sees the face of the man that murdered his son.
He responds like anyone would that. In that situation, just starts saying like "fuck you, fuck you," right?
Yeah,
and he starts breaking down.
But he's still got Travolta's voice. He looks like Castor, but he's still got Sean's voice.
But they have a fix for that.
It's a microchip.
Because this is actually a very good point. Is that like, despite all that, like you would still need to alter the voice.
Yeah. So I think they were saying before the only thing that they couldn't alter was the eye color.
Right, which
they could have gotten
fixes to that.
Could have gotten us some contacts.
Yes. Very, very simple low-tech solution.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah.
I mean, even if like you had 20/20 vision, like they could still have a contact that gives you 20/20 vision, and
they have contacts that don't actually have a prescription. They just change your eye color.
Yes, might feel a little weird if you're not used to wearing contacts. But
as someone who wears contacts, when I first started wearing them, you get used to them pretty quickly.
Yes.
It may take a couple of days to really get used to them, but after the first day or two, you really don't notice that they're even in until something happens with them. Then it's annoying. But
I mean, the big thing for him at that point would be to, and again, like you could do it is, taking them out when you get a sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, anyhow, so, eventually he settles back down, and so now he's got 2 days to get Pollux to talk.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to bring him to the prison where Pollux is, right?
But again, they can't tell anybody that he's really Sean Archer.
That's right.
So they book him just like they would have booked Castor if it had actually been Castor.
So we get, we see them, and it's Tito. They're on the top of a little helipad, like at the the headquarters there, right, or the field office, and some of the other agents are there, including Margaret Chow. Again, her character's name again is
Wanda.
I can't remember it because we don't ever really hear her name.
Yeah,
Wanda, that's
Wanda.
right. Thank you. It's like Sean's going to be pissed about this, right?
Yeah, because she doesn't.
Archer will be pissed about this.
She doesn't know that Caster is really Sean.
And he's got he's got the cuffs on, and they're loading him into the chopper, and it's gonna be he's Tito kind of like talks to him like very quietly before he puts him on, like just reminding him about, again, like no one's gonna know about this, but I'm gonna get you in 2 days, right? So, which again, you see enough movies, it's like, what? That's not gonna really go to plan, is it?
No.
So, the next thing is you see him, and he's like in like this holding area, and these guards come in, and they describe it as a Erewhon prison, Erewhon. And you have John Carroll Lynch. He's talking to him.
Basically,
and I guess
this is Con Erewhon.
Yes. And are there other prisoners with him in this area, or is it just him right now?
Right now, I think it's
just him.
It's just him. He's not put in. He's not put in with everybody else yet.
But he's obviously the intaking him into the prison, right? It's John Carroll Lynch plays guard Walton, and they're talking about saying like, no one really knows this prison exists. The Geneva Convention is void here. Amnesty International doesn't know we even exist, right? That type of thing. It's like basically meaning like, this is
there is no pneumatic tube system that will bring red here. So there's no way to get anything.
No. If you need a poster of Mariah Carey, you're screwed.
We might be able to get you one of Shakira, but not of Mariah Carey.
So they bring him in, to like the general pop, and we discover quickly they put on these magnetic boots.
Yeah.
Right? So they
Super Mario Brothers boots.
And there's tracking devices in each of them. So they know where everybody is at any given time. Right? And the boots make it like, they just kind of ploddingly walk along.
Yeah. I mean, they're
right.
And then, the boots are also to the point where they can, flip a switch and it magnetizes the floor, and the boots just get stuck to the floor and they can't move.
Yes. So, again, this is the other part where you kind of get a little bit of that sci-fi futuristic kind of aspects of the screenplay seeping in a little bit. So, excuse me, I think I might sneeze.
So they
go ahead. Sorry.
So they lead him into do they take him outside, or they take him?
He's inside
at this point. So they take him inside. They take him into basically the Gen Pop area where everybody is, and everybody's all like glaring at him, and because they all know who he is. They all know who Castor Troy is.
They know who he is. Yeah.
And so he just walks straight up to Pollux. And Pollux doesn't.
Pollux sees him. Pollux kind of sees him also, across from it, like so. But he kind of smiles and he walks up to him.
Yeah, but Pollux doesn't necessarily believe that he is who he says he is.
Not yet, right?
Even though he looks exactly like his brother.
So, but before they can even get to them, right? Because is when Thomas Jane spots him. Burr kicks. Right? And obviously, here's the thing, like, right now, Archer is just kind of focused on the job at hand. So he doesn't recognize like Hicks at first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hicks is kind of put off, like, "Oh, you don't remember me, do you?" And so then that's when it's like, and he looks at it and he realizes, oh, it's Burke Hicks, and he almost kind of lets it slip that he arrested him.
Yeah, that he arrested him. Yeah,
it's like oh no, like Sean Archer arrested you.
Sean Archer arrested you, didn't he?
Right. And so then he continues on. He starts kind of talking with Pollux a bit, and because Pollux doesn't fully believe him yet. But that's when he gets jumped by this guy named Dubov. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And as you said earlier,
played by Chris Bauer.
Chris Bauer plays Dubov. And Chris Bauer plays Frank Sobotka in The Wire. Probably one of my favorite characters in The Wire. Anyway. And so then it just starts kind of this fight in the hall, and the guards are kind of letting it go, right? And this is where like you said, Pollux doesn't fully believe that this is his brother yet. He's skeptical, right? Because he's not totally acting like his brother yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, there's like this switch, because he's kind of getting beat up a little bit. He's kind of down on his knees, and then he gets the crazed Cage eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's on now.
Yeah.
And he just starts beating up all these people.
Yeah, he's starting to put that FBI
he starts
training
pumping his fist up, and he's just yelling, "I'm Castor Troy!"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's beginning to own his character.
Yes. And so I love it. So he finally gets Dubov into this position, right, where Dubov is like down like across this table, and he can't get up, and he picks up a tray. And I love it because his first thought is to decapitate Dubov with a lunch tray.
Yeah.
But he gets to the point where it's above his head, and he sees this fear in Dubov's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And because, like, Archer obviously is not a mass murderer, and he sees that, it's obviously going to have an effect on him.
Yeah.
Right? And so he hesitates and pauses, right? Of course, and this is when Walton takes the opportunity to talk to Central or whatever, whoever controls the boots. And they lock down his boots, right? And he falls down, right? And then he takes his little wand out and he whacks, Archer or Troy with the wand, right? He's like, I end the fights around here. And then I love how he looks up. He's like, all of a sudden he realizes, like, he's gonna truly, Archer realizes he's gonna play Castor Troy.
Mm-hmm.
Just looks at Walton's like, I'm gonna have you fired.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
I mean, Castor Troy can't have that done, but Sean Archer can.
Sean Archer definitely can. Like, I know your boss.
So we never really get a follow-up to that.
No, we don't.
We don't know. At the end of this movie, we don't know if he still has a job. We don't know if Walton still has a job.
My guess is no, considering what happens.
Yeah.
Even though it's not entirely his fault.
Yeah. But
anyway.
Yeah.
So we cut back, and now it's at nighttime at that lab, at the facility or the lab.
And
then there is a gurney or bed, hospital bed. There's a patient in it. It's Castor Troy.
And his head is all wrapped up.
Right now, it is still Nicolas Cage.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of.
His head Cage. Is all wrapped up in
given what happens, bandages. You see it. He wakes up and he's got all these bandages around his face, right? Which, again, that, would be kind of scary.
Uh-huh.
And so he somehow contacts his henchmen. And they come, and we see them pull up, and they have Dr. Malcolm. Right?
Well, first we see...
And again, this is what I want to know.
So, yeah, first, Troy woke up and, took the bandages off his face, off his head, and then looked over, realized that he didn't have a face, and then looked over and saw Travolta's face in the jar.
That's right. He saw Travolta's face, and this is suspended.
And then he gets his henchmen to kidnap the doctor and bring him in. Right.
So, they show up. What I want to know is, okay, first, this is supposed to be a top secret facility.
Mm-hmm.
So, granted, I realize if you're trying to keep it top secret, you want to make it look normal.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. But the security on this place is still shit.
Yeah.
You would think there would still be certain surveillance and triggers that would go off.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then you have a noted terrorist that you just have in the bed. I guess he's in a coma, but no one's guarding him. What's with that? Because when Dr. Malcolm shows back up at the lab, at the facility, mm-hmm. right? They bring him in, and it's just him. There's no guards anywhere.
No.
He's just watching the entire surgery.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he's smoking a cigarette, and he starts applauding him for a job well done.
Yeah. He's smoking a cigarette without a face. He has no lips. And he's smoking a cigarette.
And all Malcolm can think to do is ask, "What do you want?" And then we get the reflection of his faceless face.
Yeah.
With the cigarette. He's like, "What do you fucking think?"
Yeah. So.
But again.
Yeah. So then we get. It kind of skips through the whole surgery thing.
It does. We get back to the prison. And it's just Pollux and Archer or Castor now, and they're talking. And, Pollux would still tell Archer, he seems not Archer, but could still tell Castor seems different. And this Archer plays I just can't think it move out my head. And Pollux is like, "Oh, did they shock you?" But it's like, "Yeah, I think so." Right? I'm still trying to, get my head right. And so Pollux just finally asks, "What was my medication?" Right? He's trying to ask some questions that, Castor should know. And he answers it, and he convinces him enough of it.
Yeah. So Pollux tells him the plan.
Yep. And he's like, "Yeah, they should hang your work of art in the Louvre." And then Pollux tells him, "Or the LA Convention Center."
Mm-hmm.
Because he's just going to say it just like that.
Yep.
And then Archer or whatever. I guess we could say Archer because Archer's the one that's really saying it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like thank you. Buck's like, what do you mean? And Archer's saying this in a very good impersonation of Castor.
Yeah.
It's like, you're such a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Even though he designs great bombs.
Yes.
Anyway, so they then get Archer, he's gonna, I guess they bring him to a cell. Like, who's he thinking? Anyway, so it's like they tell me he's gonna have a visitor or something like that.
Yeah, they
right?
tell me he has a visitor.
And he thinks it's gonna be Tito.
Yeah, he thinks it's gonna be Tito to get him out of there so he can get his face back on himself and go back home to his wife.
But then the door opens and it's in slow motion.
Mm-hmm. Door opens, slow motion. Who walks in?
And
John
himself.
Travolta walks in.
And he's like, hey, I liked you in Grease.
Yeah. And then it's like, but not Saturday Night Fever?
Like, no.
And he's like, no, not really. I prefer Grease.
It's really about Olivia Newton-John. I mean.
Yeah. And so then Travolta tells Cage, I loved you in The Rock.
But not Moonstruck.
Nope.
And then, and of course, like, he's about, I love how Archer or Troy is like on the verge of tears about this. And
So, real quick, how much better or worse, depending on how you look at it, would this movie have been if Cage had his Con Air hair in this movie?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm thinking about the scene where he cups the teenage bottom, or
with those locks flowing in the wind,
or he's on the airplane. He's like, "How about you suck my tongue?" And the locks just flow on this.
There's wind in places where there shouldn't be wind. His hair is always flowing.
He jumps out of an airplane. And then he starts shooting two guns whilst jumping in the air.
And his hair is just flowing behind him like a cape.
And then when it would make sense that the hair flow when he's getting, the jet engine turns on and he gets blown back down the tunnel, it doesn't flow, right? It's just laying on his shoulders.
Yeah, it just stays there.
But then, he meets himself, in this prison cell. And meanwhile, he's just walking around John Travolta playing himself. And it's just flowing.
Not playing with himself. That would be a whole different movie.
While he explains about, waking up and the procedure and how he, got, Tito and Hollis.
Tito and Hollis.
Dr. Malcolm.
And then it
doused
sort
them
of
in
cuts,
gasoline.
Yeah, and then it sort of cuts to, a little mini flashback of him, they're tied up, they're tied to chairs, and he's just dumping gasoline all over them.
They take a long time. They show a lot of this, of him just dumping gasoline on them.
Yeah, on Tito, Hollis, and Doctor.
Right? But what about the rest? There are other nurses and medical assistants and potentially other doctors that are in there.
Yeah, but they're not mentioned by name, so they're not important.
we never know anything that happens.
I mean, maybe he went and killed them in their beds or something. I don't know. Maybe they were, maybe the Men in Black came by and neuralized them so that they wouldn't remember anything about the procedure.
It's a better way of doing it. So, but he just, he mocks him. He's like all the people that know about this are dead, except you and me. And Tommy Flanagan.
Mm-hmm.
But he'll die later. Not to spoil the movie or anything.
Yeah, but
anyway. So it's like you'll be trapped in here forever. Wait, while I go get your wife.
Mm-hmm. Well, I go partake in some of that Joan Allen love.
There's a line I did not expect to hear on this podcast. He just made, but Sean has to pause him. He's like, you gotta make sure you face Waterfaller.
Yes. Don't forget the face waterfall.
Anyway, so now we cut back to Castor as Sean, right? And he's driving home. Because apparently I guess he could technically know the address.
Mm-hmm.
Sean, right? But not totally, right? Because he gets in there and he's just looking around. He's like, I'm in hell. This is the suburbs.
Yeah. And then he drives past the house.
Right? And he realizes because he kind of looked by and as he's driving by, he caught out, at his peripheral, Joan Allen.
Mm-hmm. He sees
Right?
Eve.
He's got his wife. But he doesn't know what his house looks like, right? So he just kind of knows roughly where he lives.
Yeah, because if he knew exactly where he lived, then he probably would have snuck in one night and tried to kill Sean.
Right. So, and then he reverses back, and he sees her there, and he starts talking, and she's like, "What? Did you forget where we live?"
Mm-hmm.
So, and all right, so I'm watching this. Now I'm thinking, you know what? This scene was missing after he backed up. Bruce McGill.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce McGill should have walked out of that house too.
He should have.
And then Bruce Willis would come up.
Yeah. And punch him.
And make sure it was taken care of.
Yep.
But that's our last Boy Scout episode.
Yeah, we'll be doing that movie someday. We've talked about it several times in the past. We've mentioned it, but yeah, we're going to be doing a full episode on it at some point.
He starts hitting on Joan Allen, right? And and she's kind of confused by it, right? Eve is confused by it. It's like she hasn't seen him act like this in a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, well, no, I have to go to work, right? And so, he's just kind of left at home and he's kind of, talking about it's his out of body experience because he's kind of looking at things in a very different way. And he's in the burbs and he's going to this house and looks in the desk in the drawer and he's reading his diary and discovers that Eve and Sean that they're still having a lot of trouble about
Michael's death,
Castor killing their son, and that it's been several months since they've made love and all of that, right?
Mm-hmm. And once Castor
he
reads that part about being several months since they made love, he's going to change that.
For dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting. One of the entries in the journal was is September 11th.
Huh.
And I was like, oh, September 11th. Right.
All right.
So then he's going around the house a little bit, and then
Then a car pulls in the
He's
driveway.
walking up, and he hears something going on in Janie's room, right?
No, it was, wasn't it she was pulling in the driveway with her boyfriend?
No, that's later in the movie, right?
Oh, yeah.
So this is the first interaction.
Oh,
It's
that's
like
right.
Jamie's room.
That's right. Yeah.
So he goes in the room, like he hears her talking. He hears someone talking, and the door's kind of cracked open. And she's walking around. She's got like a tank top on, and she's just in her just underpants, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he's, we've already seen that. He's
Yeah, so he's checking out his daughter, basically.
like that. Like that doesn't look awkward. Like that. This is what I like about it, though, right? So, we talked about how they play each other as each other, right? But then Nicolas Cage, his has to go to a different level, right?
Mm-hmm.
John Travolta understands that Castor is not really going to try to hide it.
Yeah.
Right? Because Castor's just going to look at that, and he's just going to start thinking with the little dude and not hide the fact that he's perving on a high schooler.
Yeah. So
that's his daughter.
Speaking of that, though, that's another thing that they would need to change. In, swapping faces, unless they're like the exact same size down there, then
yeah. Well, we don't really get a bedroom scene in this movie.
No, but it's implied.
It is implied later.
It's implied that Castor, took certain marital liberties with Joan Allen. Well, he was in Archer's body. Anyway, he had Archer's face on him.
We'll get to that.
But
so yeah, he goes by. He hears Jamie talking on the phone and sees her in the underpants, and he kind of walks in. She doesn't realize it at first. And as she turns around, she sees him and she hangs up. Well, it's funny. Like she's talking to this guy on the phone. It's like, oh, I thought that poem was kinky.
Kinky.
Right?
There's a 90s word.
Yes. She hangs up and then just like looks at her, who she sees as her dad's like, don't you knock? He's like, I just want to know if he had cigarettes. Because that's a total dad thing to say to a teenage daughter.
Yeah. And it turns out she does. And she's all trying
and
to.
And then he says, thank you, Janie. Yeah. And she's like, Janie? And he's like, Jamie.
Yeah. And, she thinks that he's going to be all mad that she has cigarettes, but he's not. He just takes one of them and.
I won't tell mom.
I won't tell mom if you don't.
It's a really weird scene.
Yeah.
Really, really weird.
Yeah.
Strange, unsettling, uncomfortable scene.
Yep. It is. It is all of those things.
And you just get, it's funny. Like at first, Castor was just this very eccentric kind of villain, and now he's a very creepy eccentric villain.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Yep. So then we cut back to the prison. Don't we? Here?
Yes. And Pollux is getting released.
Mm-hmm.
Because he has arranged, he's going to testify against his brother.
Yeah.
Like he's going to get,
because Archer, a.k.a. Troy, Castor Troy, has arranged for Pollux to be released for this.
And I guess he's been able, at some point, he's going to communicate this to Pollux. Guess what? I'm your brother.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he, man, as they're taking Pollux away, he just starts screaming, "I'm Sean Archer! I'm Sean Archer!" Right?
Well, Pollux
like
isn't screaming that.
Desperate Nicolas Cage.
Yeah. Yeah. But of course, nobody believes him because he looks just like Castor Troy.
Yep. And of course, Sean's going to start taking this to his advantage that, he is going to become this decorated FBI agent first and then turn that around to use to his advantage, right? And so he's going to save the day with that bomb.
Yes.
Right? So how about you go ahead and describe that?
So
I will be back.
Yeah, so Archer, well, Castor Troy, with Archer's face, knows exactly where the bomb is at the LA Convention Center. And he's going and disarming the bomb. Like he's working on it. He's making it look like it's taking an effort, but he knows exactly what he's doing because his brother made the bomb. And so he dramatically gets it down to 2 seconds. And that's when he just completely disarms it. And, the timer stops at 2 seconds and he saves the day. And so here's the weird thing. On the news broadcast that comes on afterwards, the newscaster is talking about Sean Archer and how he disarmed this bomb with 1 second left. But the readout on the bomb itself clearly said 2 seconds. So he was, the newscaster was a second off. But yeah, so they're making it out to be, Sean Archer is this big hero because he disarmed this bomb and saved thousands of people. Even though it was all just a game. It was all just Castor Troy being Castor Troy and disarming the bomb, making it look like he was this big hero. So, but then that gets Sean Archer, aka Castor Troy, with Sean Archer's face on him. He gets promoted. He gets all these accolades and all
magazine
these
covers and TV
interviews, all this stuff. And he's famous now because he stopped this bomb.
I was going to blow up part of LA. Right? He helped save Los Angeles.
Which, I mean,
and I like the. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, granted, there are probably some areas of LA that could stand to be, to have a bomb there, but I don't know. Some small areas that I don't know. Any town really probably has some.
Just not the dude's apartment.
No, not the dude's apartment. Not the dude's apartment, but
not Arthur Digby Sellers block either.
Yes, not Arthur Digby Sellers block either. No, you might disrupt the iron lung that he's in.
Hopefully.
But I mean, maybe I mean, it's not L.A. It's Malibu, but maybe Jackie Treehorn's place.
Maybe yes, as long as very excited trampoline guy.
Too excited trampoline guy is as long as he's at a safe distance with his trampoline.
Yes. Then you get the chief of police of Malibu though, because he's a fucking fascist.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
not that we're condoning blowing up any part of anywhere.
Unless you're a fascist or a Nazi, maybe.
Well, if you're a fascist or a Nazi, then
as long as it doesn't take out civilians, innocent people. Anyway,
we're not even saying that if you're a fascist or Nazi, you should be doing that. We're saying if you're a fascist or a Nazi, then someone should stop you.
Yes.
Like Indiana Jones.
Tom Hanks.
Someone should punch you in the
Matt
face.
Damon.
Like Indiana Jones. But yeah.
Anyhow. So, I like how they contrast things though, right? So he saves the day. He's the big hero now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, right? So this is kind of what I want to know, right? So when they're all celebrating about the bomb being defused and saving the day or whatever, right? He gets in the office, and this time they get very different. You know, again, earlier, like he's a very sullen, kind of brooding character, and now he's like the complete opposite. He's like more than happy to take all these accolades and cheer about it and be happy about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's, it's like a complete 180 from how we saw him react after capturing Castor, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, it's wise. It's like Castor's not really going to care about acting the right way to try to act like Sean, right? Whereas obviously Sean's going to try to act like Castor acts.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
it's a very good, and that's when you get, ooh, dang it. Sorry about that. And even you get Margaret Chow, right? She's looking at him, like she recognizes this, right? Wanda, she's like, oh, like, I like, how did you recover? It's like, he's like, what? And then he's like, oh, like at first, he's kind of caught off guard. Like, does she know? Right? He's like, what? He's like, oh, yeah. When they took that stick out of your ass.
Yes, when they took that stick out of your ass. Yeah. So he kind of just laughs it off.
Like, they laugh it off, right? What I want to know is that they have this candle, this cake. There's all these candles. I'm thinking like, that's a fire hazard.
Yeah. Yeah. There's an even bigger fire hazard coming up. But
yes. So what I want to know is Tito's obviously part of this team. Tito's not there.
Yeah. And Hollis is, not adjacent to the team, but she's not there.
Mm-hmm. And the FBI's had this facility that's now been burned down. And no one thinks to ask anything about how both of them haven't shown up for work the last couple days.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
And that I'm sure that someone in the FBI recognized that this facility burned down.
That is an excellent point.
Yeah, I just thought about that now. I didn't connect that earlier while watching it, and just
I didn't think about that either. But anyway, so after this work party, then he goes home, and when he gets back to the house, all the lights are off, and there's candles.
Yeah. Oh no, that was the candles I was thinking about. Yes, all over
candles.
The house.
So he walks in there, and Eve is waiting for him, and she tells him that she wanted to have an intimate candlelit dinner with him. What kind of intimate candlelit dinner has 1,000 candles?
That's what I want to know.
This room is full of candles.
Yes.
It is a huge fire hazard.
It's not just like a couple of candles
if they
on the table.
Turn the wrong way, they're going to knock over some candles. There are way too many candles in this room.
He's planning to get friskier than the pottery scene in Ghost.
Yeah. Yeah, only this time instead of clay, it's going to be candle wax.
which is not going to feel that good.
No, it won't.
It's always a bitch when like you're holding a candle and like you get the hot wax that just drips down on your hand. You're like, you're holding the candle.
That's why they have that little. That's why they have a little paper disc that you put it in, because that's supposed to block the hot wax from coming down and hitting your hand.
Which it sometimes works, not always.
But yeah, so they have their intimate candlelit dinner. And see, this is where it's implied that they fucked. That Castor went all the way with Archer's wife.
Yes.
So.
Right, because he's got admiration from the office, and he's going to get this promotion, like you said, right? And he's now actually spending time with Vulcan. We don't get to the bedroom. We get a shot of feet, and like did Tarantino direct that? But
maybe
that's about it. And so yeah. We get back to the prison now, and I'm sure that Sean is thinking Castor about like, hey, he's got an escape, and he's probably also in the back of his mind like, is he having his way with my wife? So he has to devise a plan, right? And so he kind of thinks about this, he pretends like he needs a cigarette, right? And he's able to get one, but he doesn't have a light yet, right? So he grabs it and he starts to kind of mess around with the guards to the point where they have to knock him out, and they're gonna bring him to the room where they shock people. Right, and he gets in there, and Dubov is getting shocked, right? Because it wouldn't
it's like it's not like a full blown electric chair.
Yeah, it's like electric shock treatment essentially.
But it's like
the intention is not to kill them. Not really trying to like lobotomize them like they would do with that.
No, it's
So anyway, we get a sense that they might do this earlier, like when they first stop the fight when he first gets to the prison. Right, Lynch's character talks to Dubov, and he's like, "Yeah, you do one more strike, Dubov, and you're gonna get the shocks again, or something to that effect, right?"
Yeah.
So he gets there, and Dubov, he's getting the shocking the heck out of him, right? And they just kind of let him after they get him out of the chair. Like on the floor flat, right? Because he can't get up right now, right? He's not capable of that, in the moment. So they put him in the chair, and he gets out the cigarette. It's like, before you're shocked, we're gonna give can I get a light here?
Wait, before this, did we? Yeah, I think we skipped over the part where Castor as Archer meets with Lazaro, because that's how he ultimately gets his promotion.
That's right. Yeah. So, because Lazaro doesn't like some of the tactics that Archer's been using. He's like, I'm still the boss. I don't approve it. Some of these things that you're doing, because Castor is arresting people as Archer.
Yeah.
That are kind of like his enemies or his foes, whatever you want to call them, right?
His rivals.
Yes, rivals. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm looking for. It's like, it's like, no, I don't care about this. Like, this is not how we're going to go about doing this. So what he does is that he basically, he breaks his windpipe and then hits him in the chest and causes him to get a heart attack.
And then, he
Right.
calls as he's dying on the floor. He calls everybody. He's like, oh, he leaves and he tells, was it Wendy, or was it Wanda that he told that,
Yeah.
Lazaro, you might want to call somebody. I think he's having a heart attack.
He casually leaves.
Yeah.
Because that's not suspicious.
No, not at all. So, yeah, so he ends up getting Lazaro's job after Lazaro dies.
Right. He even talked, we even mentioned, like, earlier, like, at some point, like, even the president wants to speak with him, right? They commend him for a job well done, right? And I gotta look at the notes real quick.
So then we're back in the prison with the electric chair, the the semi-electric chair.
Yes. And so, like, Dubov, he's on the ground now. He can't do anything, right? He's so.
And they're putting
Archer,
putting
Archer in
cigarette. Yeah, they're putting
and
Archer
they
in the
decided, we'll give you a
up.
light. You can have a few puffs before we do this.
Mm-hmm.
And he speaks some words to Dubov before it happens. We're gonna get out. I forget exactly what he says,
but anyway. So
and then he starts basically this large riot.
Yeah.
In the prison.
Yep. So Dubov Dubov gets his back in this, right?
Yes, he does.
Because he wants to get out too. So Dubov is basically his muscle at this point.
Mm-hmm. This entire sequence is interesting, right? Because, like, he starts this thing and, like, himself, when he's going to confront these guards, he's not going to kill them.
No.
Right?
Because he's a good guy.
He's a good guy. But, at the same time, he's understanding that, like,
Castor would kill them.
Castor would kill them. And he can't quite control what the other inmates might do.
Mm-hmm.
But he realizes that Castor's out there who will probably ultimately cause more death.
Yeah.
Right? So he understands, that there might be, I hate to say collateral damage.
Yeah, I mean, just like the agent who sucked Castor's tongue. Sometimes you have to do things when you're undercover.
Exactly.
In order to play the part.
Like, again, if he's going to end up being confronted directly with a guard, he's just going to incapacitate them.
Mm-hmm.
He won't, right? He's not, if he shoots one of them, he's going to make sure he shoots someplace where it's not going to be,
where it's survivable.
But, so. And it's this whole thing. And it finally gets to a point where the two of the Dubov and him are kind of up, the high up, one of these, like, kind of like catwalks there, right? And Dubov, like, this force that sends Dubov kind of over, and he has to kind of grab on to, like, this barrel of a rifle that Archer's, like, holding on to, right? But ultimately, he can't hold on to it, right?
Yeah.
And he falls to his death.
Yeah.
So, but Archer's finally able to fully escape out up through the roof of this prison. And then when he gets out, it's just like a helipad on basically this, like, almost like it's not an oil derrick, but, like, in the middle, it's in the middle of, I shouldn't say the middle of the ocean, but
no, but
it's out at sea.
It's out offshore.
Because you can see the shore. So, but now when he gets there, like, there's a helicopter that's up there. So, right. So, like, the guards have been able to, like, send out the message that there's this riot going on in the prison, and so they, someone sends a helicopter, and he has no choice, but he's going to have to jump off the platform.
Yeah.
Into the ocean. And so that's what he does. And, and so now you have this, you get a scene back at the office. It's like Castor or Castor as Archer was like, well, did he get a body? It's like, no. Oh no, this is what happens first. They so this is the next morning, and the two of them wake up, Eve and Archer or Castor, and Castor is just gonna fucking run. But Eve wakes up like what? Where are you going? It's like, no, it's our son's birthday.
Yeah.
We're supposed to
go to the cemetery. We always go to the cemetery on his birthday.
So they go and they put she has all these like little toy trucks and toys and she lines up on his headstone.
Yeah.
And she just starts breaking down. Right?
Yep.
So then he kind of hugs her and it's like you're thinking like, and you can tell within like, this is awkward.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when it cuts back to the headquarters, and now he's gone back to work and he hears about that Castor died trying to escape. And he's like, well, is there a body?
And they're like, no.
And then I love it. This is like he's angry and almost kind of feels like kind of the angry Archer in a way. But Castor is like, it's not even intentional. He's like, it hasn't been recovered.
Yeah.
Right. And now all of a sudden, all of you are like, oh, maybe he does have that stick back up his ass.
Yeah. Sometimes,
right?
you take it out and then put it right back in.
Yeah. Once it comes out, it can go back in fairly easily. It's just.
Yep.
Anyhow, so we cut back and now we get Archer as Castor. He's trying to avoid the cops because, like, there's everyone's looking for him, right? And he's able to find a unlocked car and he starts it up. It has its keys in it and it's got a car phone.
Yep.
And he calls home to Eve and he's just like, it's like, the man inside your house that isn't your husband. You gotta go to your mom's, right? And she doesn't believe him.
Of course she doesn't.
It sounds like Nicolas Cage. He's like, why do you sound like Nicolas Cage?
And she's like, I loved you in The Rock, but not so much in Moonstruck.
But you know what? I kind of like, So I Married an Axe Murderer. That wasn't him. That was no, Honeymoon in Vegas. That's all I was thinking.
So Honeymoon in Vegas. Axe Murderer was Mike Myers.
I did love you in Raising Arizona.
I thought that Mike Myers would be confused with Nicolas Cage.
Anyhow, it happens.
Yep.
All the time.
It does.
No. So eventually, he realizes that he has to, the safest place for him right now is probably some of Castor's, allies.
Yeah.
So he goes to Dietrich's, who lives in this large apartment flat.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's nothing subtle about where he lives.
No.
And so, they're talking, and he's like, "Yeah, no, I gotta go get Sean Archer." And then Dietrich's like, "Well, what's gonna happen when you get him?" And that's when they get a lot. That's when they get the line. I'm gonna take his face
off.
And Dietrich's like, "Take his face off."
And have we met the boy yet?
Not yet. That's soon,
Sasha's son.
right? So as this is going on, we actually kind of cut back to wait, yeah, because that's happened. That's also happened.
Yeah.
So before,
because he met Adam, Sasha and Castor's son, who's about the same age as Jamie, or as Michael.
yes.
She tells him the same age as he would have been.
Son.
Yeah. And this is when he starts. Was it with him or was it with Sasha that he was starting to do the face waterfall and then stopped?
Sasha, I thought.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah. No, it was Adam, because then she stops.
Because it reminds him
Sasha,
of. Yeah, it reminds him.
You're scaring him. Because he starts calling Adam by his son's name, Michael. But we get a scene so that's happening. It does actually cut back to Archer's house, where now, so we see that we understand that Eve is actually a doctor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And sometimes works at night on call.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a scene, it's at night, and it's just Archer's at home, or Castor's at home by himself as Archer.
Yeah.
And Jamie comes home
with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend is trying to get frisky.
In the driveway, and she won't have it. And he hears this, and he walks out and starts beating him up.
Yeah. He walks out, starts beating up her boyfriend. And, boyfriend gets in the car and drives off.
Right. So they get back in the house. And he should start saying, well, if you dress a certain way, like, they're going to start treating you this particular way.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, yeah, sure, blame me, Dad.
And then she's like, I just hope you have protection. And she's like, what, you mean condoms? He's like, no. He pulls a butterfly knife out of his pocket. He's like, no, protection. Next time, take this, jam it into his leg, and twist it so the wound doesn't close.
She's like, thanks. Right. So now, it cuts back to the apartment, and we realize that Pollux has been spying on the flat.
Mm-hmm.
And he calls Archer or Castor. They're at home. After this whole scene with Jamie and the boyfriend, and he decides he ends up calling the rest of the FBI, and they're gonna do a raid on the.
Yeah, they're gonna do a raid on Dietrich's place.
So, as he's kind of talking with Sasha and Adam there, right? And again, like, Archer's a cop. He hears it before it kind of like breaks through the window. The gunfire. He tells them to get down, right? And so, and all of a sudden they're shooting for him. He's trying to protect both, Sasha and Adam. Mm-hmm. Now it's just a full-on firefight.
Yeah. And so Dietrich, he's gonna go out there, but before he does, Sasha pulls him in close and kisses him. Her brother.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just a, hey, good luck, I hope you stay safe kind of kiss. It is.
No, it's not.
It's more intimate than the Luke and Leia kiss in Empire. Like, they're full on making out.
Yeah, it's weird. The entire setup is weird. Like,
this is
all their other allies are weird.
That they're siblings are making out before he runs out into this firefight.
Yep. We are assured that the child's not her brother's. It's
Castor's child. Yeah, Adam is Castor's son.
Again, it's obvious they had a childhood, and Castor and Pollux had a childhood.
Yeah,
maybe the parents knew each other. I don't know. But
yeah.
Anyway, so it's a full-on firefight, and
after a full-on makeout session,
now you got not just the you got the bullets kind of coming in, but now they're raining in from actually coming up the building also in the apartment.
Yeah, and so, Dietrich gets hit.
What I like about this scene though is so they put some headphones on the boy.
Yes. Oh, what song was it? Was it Somewhere Over the Rainbow?
It's Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It is not the Judy Garland version. No. It's another version of it.
But yeah, this whole time during this firefight, it keeps cutting to Adam in his headphones, and you just hear Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
This here is full on John Woo. You're getting the slow motion, but for him, this is how he orchestrates his action sequences. There's music here, right? And again, certain gunshots giving certain rhythm to the entire scene, right? It's not just random gunshots. The gunshots are purposeful to add to the rhythm of the scene.
Yes.
Right? And some of this is almost even all through the eyes of Adam. Right? For him, it's almost like he's not fully aware that the shit is hitting the fan around him.
That's because he's listening to Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Yes. You're trying to kind of it's an interesting way to kind of shield them from the reality of what's happening while still trying to save everybody, right? So ultimately though, Dietrich's gonna end up getting killed in this, right? And then
good thing you got that last kiss.
We get a Pollux comes in here somehow too, right? He gets into the apartment and he ends up getting shot and killed.
Yeah.
Right? And then one of the other agents comes in and he sees Castor or Archer, right? Archer as Castor as Archer crying over this, right? He's like, "What? Why are you crying? That's Pollux Troy." And then he just shoots the agent in the head, right? But then he finally get again. Now I guess our third face off of Castor and Archer, right? And they're on opposite sides of a mirror, right? Each side of this mirror is a mirror.
Oh, and this time Archer was given...
One side's a mirror, the other side's a mirror.
This time Archer, as Castor, was given Castor's gold-plated 1911s. So he's got those now. But yeah, so
that's I guess, when he gets there, he gets his gold-plated 1911s. And this scene is kind of cool.
And
this scene is this part is really cool.
Can't forget the chiclets.
You get the camera angle, right, is looking at both of them. Their backs are to each other, and then you get this giant mirror that's in between them.
Yeah.
Right?
Because every henchman's apartment just has a giant mirror right there.
Yes.
Right in the middle of everything.
It's just in case that your boss has to fight with his arch enemy, and that way they can. But
each of them has the other's face.
Each other with this giant mirror.
Yeah, but it only works if they have each other's faces.
That's why it's there.
So yeah. mean, did Dietrich know the doctor? Was
Probably.
he aware of this secret procedure?
Yeah.
And that's why you had that mirror set up there?
Yeah. He bought the mirror just for this.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So they're talking, right? And then they finally stand up and they turn around. And I like that. It's like, they present it, you see both of them kind of shoot at each other, right? But they're really shooting at themselves because, like, they're getting the reflections. And it's kind of cool because, like, they're destroying themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
You were going so much deeper into this movie. Into the psychology of this movie than I think anybody ever has.
and now the mirror shatters, right? Right. Actually, so I think it's actually after this is when he shoots the FBI agent, right? Because Archer as Castor is able to get away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's after all this when there's actually a lull that he's able to go and mourn his brother's death.
So, yeah, because it's after the firefight, and obviously that would be the point to do it. So, but Castor or Archer, I should say, Archer as Castor takes the opportunity to go back home, and he waits for Eve. Right, and then he wants to kind of get her to the point where, like, he can talk to her without her seeing him.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but then, she ends up seeing him and
she freaks out because it's Castor Troy.
She freaks out and she keeps trying to say he's trying to calm her down. It's like,
he's doing face waterfall.
He does
he does face waterfall.
Just shows up in the corner again. Go chasing waterfalls. And he says, like, and the one thing you can say to convince her on this is, like, what? Like, I think he says O positive or something like that.
Yeah, the blood test. Or the blood type. That was the one thing they couldn't change. It wasn't the eye color, it was the blood type.
Right. Because, it's still the bodies, right?
Yeah,
that'd be hard to do.
Yeah, because Archer is O negative and Troy is AB.
Troy is AB.
Yeah.
Right. And so, he leaves, right? He's able to escape without the rest of, like, the FBI or the cops finding him there, and cuts again to that night, and she's up, breathing in bed, and Castor as Archer, he's asleep, and she takes Archer, a little, like, needle.
Archer as Castor told her, test his blood, and that's how you'll know.
She takes a little needle and, like, little kind of, pricks him with it, right? And he kind of maneuvers a little bit, and then she kind of reaches for a little bit longer, make sure he's still asleep, and she leaves. And she goes to her hospital, right? And she goes into this little lab, and she decides to go ahead, and she puts it on a little slide and puts it in the machine to test the blood type.
And it turns out
comes up as AB. And so she knows. And that's then when Archer as Castor is in the shadows. He's like, I knew you would show up.
That's not
and then he
creepy at all.
proceeds to tell a story that only he would know about one of their first dates.
Yeah. And then he drops his pants and shows that, see,
I'm 3 inches longer.
Yeah.
I also have that mole in my left testy. Right there.
That one that you make fun of every time you see it?
But no, the story is about like him not realizing that she was a vegetarian.
Yeah.
On one of these dates.
Yep.
And having to go around and anyway, so and now and again, it's enough for her to be like,
it was the blind
to
date,
convince her.
their first
Besides,
date.
not just the physical test, but this intimate like encounter date that they had early on when they were first falling in love, right? So, but then, of course, Castor as Sean wakes up. She's not in bed. Now he's suspicious, right?
Yeah.
He calls his henchmen, including Tommy. They show up all badass at the hospital.
Yes.
Like, he shows up with his henchmen. He didn't show up with the FBI or cops.
No, he shows up with his
henchmen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, because that would look odd. Like,
what's this
why
FBI
are
agent
Castor's
doing?
henchmen with you, Sean?
Yeah.
Right. And so, but she's actually, before this starts to happen, like after she's convinced and they see each other again for the first time in a while, like he's been kind of like shot in that whole melee, right?
Yeah.
Not seriously, but enough that she has to like tend to his wound, right? And so, but he's able to slip out in time, and she's in with this other patient when they come in. And she's like, "Why are you here?" It's like, "Oh, I'm just so jealous that when I wake up and my wife's not in bed with me." She's like, "I'm a doctor that's on call all the time.
I'm a doctor that's on
you
call.
You should know this, right?"
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Oh, secrets and lies. This is starting to feel like a real marriage." That's such a 90s line.
Yes, it is.
It's like a 90s sitcom.
And it's delivered in only the way that Travolta can deliver it.
That's right. So, we get back. And so, the one thing that we forgot, I guess, I mentioned as they were talking about this is like, Sean's telling her, or Sean as Castor is telling her, right? Like, he'll be vulnerable at the funeral for the
for Lazaro.
Previous director, Lazaro, right? So, we cut to that next day, right? And she, the three of them, right? Jamie, Eve, and Archer, or Castor.
Yeah.
We're going to go to the funeral. And it's so weird. So, like, okay, so they're, I mean, it looks Catholic, right? There's a crucifix and everything, but it's not. This doesn't seem like really like a church. It seems almost like a funeral home or some chapel. I have a hard time. Like, it's, kind of really saying what it is. It's definitely not a formal like church, but it doesn't feel like just like a funeral home either. So is it like this chapel where they're doing this? And so
one thing is for sure, though, at this funeral, we do get a shot of John Woo's signature doves.
Oh yes, it's terrific, right? So
they're all
going
over
through
this place.
This, I mean, all over. So they're going through the service, and as they're doing the service, right? Like somewhere in the back, you have Archer as Castor, like lighting like votive candles, right? And that's when you start seeing the doves, right?
Yeah, in case you're not familiar with John Woo's work, he always inserts doves somewhere in his movies.
There's
doves and
always
slow
doves,
motion are his trademarks.
The slow motion, and someone jumping through the air while shooting two guns.
Yes.
In this movie, it's Nicolas Cage. In a lot of his Hong Kong movies, it's Chow Yun Fat.
Yes, Chow Yun Fat, and then in Mission Impossible 2, it's Tom Cruise.
I need to watch Broken Arrow again to see if it's John Travolta or Christian Slater.
It's probably both of them.
Howie Long is also in that movie.
Yes, he is.
But I don't think Howie Long is jumping through the air while shooting
I don't think so.
guns.
I don't think Howie Long is jumping through the air whilst shooting two guns.
I mean, Nick Frost does it.
Or shooting two guns whilst jumping through the air.
It's shooting two guns whilst jumping through the air.
Yes.
Have you ever shot two guns whilst jumping through the air? No.
Have you ever shot one gun whilst jumping through the air? No.
Go back and watch our Hot Fuzz episode. Yes. Or listen to our Hot Fuzz episode.
That was a fun one.
That was a fun one. I'm glad we could reference it.
Mm-hmm, me too.
As soon as it happened, I'm like, yeah, it's going to happen.
Yep.
So, yeah. So we reached the point, they're so for whatever reason, Jamie is not in this part at first, right? Tommy Flanagan has to bring Eve into the situation. I mean, Jamie again in the situation at the end, right? Because we get this whole setup at the end of this
the funeral
when they finally get the standoff, and it's a true standoff. You got Castor's guys, you got Eve in there, you got Sean in there, right? You got guns pointing at everybody in this scene.
It is a true Mexican standoff.
It is a true Mexican standoff. And then the firefight happens again. And now you get the guns in the slow motion and doves flying in
slow motion. And the doves are still around.
Thankfully, none of the doves get shot that we know of.
Like, there are some shots in here that you wouldn't think that a dove would be there, but all of a sudden, there's a dove. There's a dove in the corner.
There's a dove. Right. And I mean, everyone's like in this, right? Not everybody, but a lot of people are in this, right? Like Sasha shows up, right? And she's ready to go ahead and shoot Archer, right? And I think she it's never fully said, if she understands there's some swap that's happened.
Yeah, I mean, she's suspicious at least.
Yes. So the only two people that survive that, well, I guess Eve's not there. Eve comes later because she gets Eve is there. So Eve survives, Archer survives, and Castor survives this little standoff.
Yeah.
And they go running off. And he's trying to run off, right? And then that's when Jamie comes in and Castor as Archer captures her and then decides to point a gun to her head.
Yeah.
So now she knows that's definitely not Daddy.
Yeah. But wait. No. So Jamie comes in and then
that's right.
Castor that's right. She picks up a gun.
That's right.
Castor and Archer are both there and they're doing the whole, no, I'm your dad. They're doing that whole, I'm the real one. No, I'm the real one. And so she has to try to decide who to shoot. And she shoots Archer as Castor.
Yeah, but she misses kind of wide and kind of just grazes him through the arm, right?
And then that
gets him in the fatty part of the arm.
Yeah, then that is when Castor, as Archer, takes her hostage.
And he's like, my daughter can't shoot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, she misses wide, which is also kind of creepy. So.
Yeah. So
anyway, yeah, and he has her,
and so now she realizes that she just shot the wrong one.
Yep. But She still has a butterfly knife.
Yes, she does. She reaches in her pocket, pulls out that butterfly knife, and does exactly what Castor told her to do if her boyfriend ever tried to take advantage of her again.
She shoves it in his thigh.
Shoves it in his thigh and twists it. And he lets go of her, and she, runs out from, away from him.
So now is when this shit really hits the fan. So he escapes into a boat. Archer, as Castor, follows him into another boat.
And we have a boat chase.
And now they are going a boat chase through Los Angeles. And it's glorious.
Yes. Very much
not
so.
For everybody. Like there's a bunch of like cops and Coast Guard people get shot by like Castor as Archer.
They're like jumping stuff
and they get their ship blown up.
It's a glorious boat chase.
It's there with like the boat chase in Last Crusade.
Yeah.
Through the canals of Venice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're squeezing through everything, and they're going all over the water. And again, like at some point, like the harbor police show up, right, and they're trying to stop it, and Castor as Archer shoots them and unfortunately kills some of them and blows up their boat, and things just keep blowing up.
Lots of explosions.
And how do they eventually end the chase? So the end of the chase is there's an exploding boat flying through the air.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't Castor crash or something?
Yes, they both crash. Like they end up flying through the air, and the boat's exploding like through the air, and they crash towards the end of this pier, right? And they get out, and they start having this melee.
They get out, and
so finally, Castor as Archer gets his idea, right? Because he's kind of up against the wall. There's a harpoon gun nearby that Sean as Castor has, and they're facing off against each other again. There we go. They're facing off.
And and at this point, I think it was before they got on the boats, because they were fighting. And what we didn't mention earlier with the whole voice thing, we mentioned that that they implanted a microchip. But they implanted a microchip into the larynx, and that is what allowed them to change the voice to sound like each other.
Right.
The doctor specifically says a hard hit will knock this thing out and not let it'll stop working. A strong sneeze could even do it.
That's right. I forgot about that. That's a good point.
And so during their fight, both of them, I guess, got these microchips nudged too hard, and so they both had their own voices again.
Yeah.
So you've got Cage with Travolta's voice and Travolta with Cage's voice.
Wild. It is wild. It's kind of wild because it's got this wild final scene. And in some ways, it almost becomes anticlimactic at this point.
Yeah.
Which I think will be maybe one of my main gripes here. Because it gets crazy because, at this point, you do have Cage's voice coming out of Travolta, all right? He's kind of backed up against a wall, right? But he's got a knife. So what's he decides to do with that knife? He's gonna start cutting his face. It's like, that dude's like, cutting his face. You're gonna have this
off.
You're gonna mess up your face, right?
And he is not staying in the lines.
He is not staying in the lines. He missed those days in kindergarten.
Yes. He is not tracing that line.
No wonder he became such a criminal. He skipped days of kindergarten. If he would have been there for those days of kindergarten, he stayed in the lines.
Yep.
He would have been an upstanding citizen.
Yep.
No, instead he became a terrorist. So to all the kids out there that are listening,
stay in school.
Stay in the lines. Stay in school. Otherwise, he might try to cut your face
Off.
Anyway, just to end it, then Archer as Castor just shoots Castor as Archer
Mm-hmm.
in the chest with a harpoon.
Yep. Yep. Because every boat just happens to have a harpoon gun.
Yeah. Like, I get why there was a harpoon in the Looking Glass station.
Yes.
That made sense.
That was underwater.
Yeah, it's underwater. Right? And like it was the others, I get it. They were always ready for certain situations, and thankfully it happened to be there for Desmond.
A motorboat in LA had a harpoon gun.
Like, I gotta have a harpoon. You never know when you can need a harpoon.
It makes me want to buy a boat just so I can put a harpoon gun in it.
Anyway, so Castor. Now here's the point here, right? So Castor's been shot
with a harpoon.
Castor as Archer has been shot, right? The harpoon. The FBI comes and and some of his allies, some of all the people that Archer would know are there, and they have believed that Archer as Castor is actually Archer, right? And he's surprised by this. So they're going to go ahead and somehow they have found someone else that can do this procedure.
Yeah.
Now, what I want to know,
they end up putting
as we go is so there's
Archer's face back on him and reversing
how
of
do
the
they find this person
liposuction
that can do
and
this?
all that.
Considering that this is experimental, and they had to reverse this because we'll find out about that soon. But I would also think, again, as you said earlier, you had to make sure that tissue remains living. So just as a dye, as it's sitting in that pool of water for a week or so, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this movie takes place over probably like a week, maybe a week and a half. It's not a long period of time when all this happens. Because again, he had 2 days to find out. And at the end of the 2 days, he thought he was going to get released by Tito. Right? That wasn't the case.
Mm-hmm.
But then you would also think that Castor as Archer, he's been shot by a harpoon, but you need to try to keep him alive, because if he dies, then anything, after someone dies, you need to, if they're an organ donor, right? They have to be brought into an OR quickly to salvage those organs.
Yeah.
Because if it's too long,
then the organs are going to die.
Then you can't use them. Right? Just like the facial tissue would die.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to still, connect.
But again,
cut off the face.
If you try to
take his
work logic into this,
off.
Yeah, if you try to use logic in this movie, it's going to ruin it.
Anyway,
so
the last scene, they're at home. Okay, so now they're at home. We're back at Archer's house, and Eve is there.
And so they must have given him hair extensions or something, because he's back to Travolta's hairstyle.
Yes,
and they were cutting it to get it down to Cage's hairstyle. So they must have given him some extensions, for the time being while his hair grew up.
Yes. That's a good point.
But yeah, so he gets home. He gets home.
And he's walking through, and she sees him starting to walk up the driveway or the sidewalk. Okay, this is also what I want to know. So she's been upset that he's been distant for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've had this whole fiasco.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's going to go through this major surgery to get his face back.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of being at the hospital or facility where they do this, She waits at home?
Yeah. She's a doctor. She's spent way too much time at the hospital. She's like, hey, this is my day off. I am not going to another hospital.
Like, so he gets home and she's happy. And Jamie's happy.
And Jamie's not dressed like
she's there
like she was before. She's like all clean cut now, and
she's dressed like a normal teenager now.
Yeah, a normal, well-adjusted teenager.
She's not listening to Marilyn Manson anymore.
Nope.
Right,
but Archer is like, "Hey, I want you to meet somebody."
He gives him a hug. There's some face waterfalls.
Yeah. Oh, did we mention that Sasha died earlier? She got killed in one of the shootouts.
Yeah, says that she gets killed in the Dove shootout.
Yeah,
in the church or chapel.
Yeah. So
the three of them.
Yeah. So yeah, there's face waterfalls. Face waterfalls galore.
TLC. Cues up again.
And then
he says,
Archer's
I have
like,
one
hey,
more thing.
I have one more thing. And he sort of motions, and
it's my dick in a box. No. Sorry. That would be Castor.
Yes. And Adam walks through the front door. And Travolta just kind of acts like, hey, can we keep him?
And Jamie's like, right away, it's like, let me show you your room. Yeah.
So Jamie runs up to him.
All my dead brother stuff is still in there.
Like,
let me show you that room.
My name's Jamie. What's your name? And he's like, Adam. And she does a face waterfall on him.
TLC cues back up. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
And she's like, hey, let me show you your room. Sean Archer.
And I always think it's interesting that okay. So the mother's name is Eve, and her son's name is Adam.
Yeah. 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 So
anyway.
Sean Archer, a highly decorated FBI agent, who is now a national hero, a bona fide American hero, who has gotten so much recognition that the president wants to talk to him, right?
Yes.
He just straight up stole a kid.
Okay. So like it's weird, right? So like Eve, like she's not quite as quick as Jamie, like, but eventually it's like, yeah, okay, we can do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's so many points around this, right? So first, they would also think this is massive news. Hey, that dude, John Travolta, that we've been celebrating. Well, when he was doing that, he actually wasn't John Travolta. Yeah. He was Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
But now he's John Travolta again. Like, that would be big news in of itself.
Yeah.
But then you add on the point, like, oh, and he may have just stole a kid.
Oh, he definitely stole a kid. There was no like, adoption paperwork that went on there at that time. He stole a kid.
And now it's like the first son never died. It's so weird because, okay, we get back to the point that
you just replaced,
just like John Travolta again.
Replaced your dead son,
right?
You replaced your irreplaceable dead son.
John Travolta could have taken off the love handles, right? And like I said, we bring in this boy that he stole, and he replaces his dead son. Because even when so let's rewind back just a little bit. As he's going under for this procedure, he tells the doctors, like, I don't need this anymore about that scar.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I'm in that situation, I would still want that scar back as that reminder. Even if I brought that guy to justice.
He doesn't need that reminder anymore because he has a new kid. He has a replacement kid. So he doesn't need the scar to remind him of his first kid.
He's the upgraded version of his dead son. Meanwhile, he's probably like, "Where's my mom?"
I mean, he's got the bowl cut.
She got shot by your dad, right? But they leave it at that. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's probably a sequel somewhere you can make where like he realizes how fucked up this actually is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a sequel there where, Adam, gets emancipated at 15 because he was brought in to live with his fucked up family that stole him. I'm sure he has other relatives.
Yes. I mean, his mom was sleeping with his uncle, who happened to be her brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something that's going to go on there. I don't know.
I'm sure he's got grandparents somewhere.
But that's the end of Face Off.
Or, some other aunt or uncle.
John Travolta stealing a kid.
Yes. The movie started with Nicolas Cage flat out shooting a kid in the head. And it ended with John Travolta stealing a kid. So, yeah.
The 90s were a hell of a time for movies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is a great 90s movie.
Yes, it is.
It's a very different action movie than Con Air is.
Yes.
But
yeah, this is the first instance of full blown crazy, like batshit crazy Cage.
Yeah. Whether he's trying to do John Travolta face waterfalls.
Mm-hmm.
If he's talking about taking someone's face
off.
He's talking about eating a peach.
Mm-hmm. I could eat a peach all day.
I could eat a peach all day. I mean, that's the style. Mm-hmm. That's the line that they use to
program the
match up the voice.
Yeah.
Whether he is giving his O face
to during the Hallelujah chorus. During Handel's Messiah.
And then he just allows John Travolta to even try to imitate him. And John Travolta does a good job of imitating him.
He does.
He does. And then Joan Allen's just in the middle of that, playing everything straight because she's Joan Allen.
Yep. Very enjoyable movie.
No pop love ballad like Con Air.
No pop love ballad, but it doesn't need one.
No, it does not. But it's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
Yes, definitely. I highly recommend watching this movie. If you have not seen it, if you have seen it, watch it again. It's just glorious.
Again, it's peak Cage. It's the best. It's the best American John Woo movie. And there's so much to enjoy about it. It's well done in a lot of respects. Again, don't worry about the logic of it. I think they smartly decide that
if you try to focus too much on the logic,
stuff, because
it's going to ruin it for
I'm
you.
sure if they kept more sci-fi stuff in it, it would make even less sense. Just would be less coherent and less tight as a movie. So,
and if you fast forward it, like all the way through, then it would actually be like you're watching half the movie at normal speed.
Yes.
Because of all that slow-mo.
That's very true.
So, anyway, got anything else you want to say about it?
I think that's my final. I just think it's a great cap. Like you have this trinity, this holy trinity of Cage action movies.
Yes.
The Rock, Con Air, and Face Off.
Yep. And now we've covered them all on this podcast.
We've covered all of them.
And yeah. So that said, if you enjoy what you're hearing, then go ahead and check us out on our social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. It's Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. The and is spelled out A&D. It's not an ampersand like it is the name of the podcast. Then you can also check us out on X or Twitter. It is R&T Cinematic. And then we are also on Letterboxd. So if you want to check out our movie reviews, some are movies that we've done on the podcast. If we haven't done some, we will do some, we won't do. That is Cine Adventure or Cine Adventure, CINE Adventure. And you can even shoot us an email at robandtonycinematicadventure@gmail.com. Once again, the and is spelled out. It's A&D. It's not an ampersand like it is the name of the podcast. But yeah, let us know what you thought of Face Off. Did you prefer it to Con Air? Did you prefer Con Air to Face Off? Did you hate both? Did you love both? What do you think? Do you think that Cage could have been crazier? Do you think Travolta could have been crazier? Do you think they dialed it back? Do you think they gave it their all?
Do you think Joan Allen should have been crazy and just face waterfall to everybody else in this movie?
Yes. This movie needed more face waterfalls. But anyway, just let us know what you think. We want to hear from you. And, if there's other movies that you think we should do on the podcast, then, let us know. We want to do movies that you guys want to hear us talk about. So, yeah, if you enjoy what you're hearing, then go to our social media, give us a like and a follow, go to your favorite podcasting app, wherever you're listening to us, and hit that subscribe button. Give us a good rating, a good review. That's how we move up in the standings and the ratings and the search and the recommendations, all that stuff. And yeah, we want to be able to bring you some content that you want to listen to. Anyway, next week we are going to be continuing we've just brought an end to our Nicolas Cage miniseries. Nicolas Cage Summer Blockbuster.
Staying with the summer.
But we're still going back to our main summer blockbuster series. And since the 4th of July is coming up, we've got a special movie for that. We did Independence Day last year. So this year, we're going to do another 4th of July movie with The Patriot.
The sequel to Braveheart.
Yes, the sequel to Braveheart. A few hundred years later. On a different continent.
Both wildly inaccurate historically. But that's okay.
That's okay, because they're both very enjoyable movies.
We're going to get... Okay, so...
And they both star Mel.
Yes. So, we had peak Nicolas Cage this week.
Mm-hmm.
The Patriot, we're going to get peak Mel Gibson. I'm sorry, we had peak Nicolas Cage this week. And kind of peak Travolta. We're going to get peak Mel Gibson and Jason Isaacs next week.
Yes. Yes.
With a little Heath Ledger thrown in.
Yes, not quite peak Heath Ledger, but he did do a very good job.
No, not peak Heath Ledger, no.
Peak Heath Ledger was Joker, but yes. In The Dark Knight. But,
which we'll get into that. Like, if you see Heath Ledger between these movies, you never would guess the Heath Ledger from this movie could do the Joker.
Yeah. But anyway, so we are, we're going to talk all about The Patriot and how just good that movie is.
Yes. Yes.
It's such an enjoyable movie.
We could get into its flaws next week. And
it definitely has flaws.
Well, it's got flaws.
It's also just a a fun, just enjoyable watch. And there are parts of it that aren't so fun, but it's a good movie.
I look forward to talking about it because it's been a while since I've seen it. So
yeah. So if you haven't seen it, then check it out. If you have seen it, watch it again. But you got a little bit of time before the next episode comes out. You got a few days. So join us next time for The Patriot.